I have no idea.
Volume, basically.
Sound is so loud, like...
So why don't they say volume?
Because the audio people who made the rules called it gain.
Nice. Discord sound config is like two things. It's kind of difficult to troubleshoot.
Is this better?
Oh yeah, that's way better.
Okay, so I turned down the volume and I turned up the gain and it fixed it.
Wonderful.
Good to know.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, so it's voice and video, and then input sensitivity is the thing that Samantha had me shut all the way down, and that's what prevented me from chopping.
Oh, give me a sec. There's something riding on my ass crack right now. What the fuck? Okay. All right. Yep.
Biden's penis.
Yeah, it's
Layman's favorite thing to talk about.
Shut up. Shut the fuck up. I'm way too close to my... Okay. Wonderful. Yo, Doomer, you're not turning your camera?
I don't own a camera.
I know. I know.
That's alright, that's a pretty cute picture. Although the beanie like reminds me of Tim Pool, so that's not great.
Yeah, it's my Halloween costume.
Bad centrist, right?
Yeah, I planned on like going through like some examples of definitions, and then I was just gonna have whatever Tim Pool is as its own definition. Because I do not know what that motherfucker.
You know what's so weird though? I seriously think like I think like normies would be like, oh, he is a centrist because he's a liberal and he's a leftist. He just likes Trump, and it's like, what?
So many leftists that like Trump.
Yeah.
The ultimate centrism. Well, I guess like what's his name? Jimmy Dore, the ultimate centrist Jimmy Dore, as we all know.
Yeah, I haven't Sean apparently posted a video like 20 minutes ago on Jimmy Dore.
Sean the Skull guy?
Yep.
Oh, nice. Interesting. I love his videos.
I love his videos, but his Twitter. Is like ass cancer. Holy shit.
I'll be right back.
Dude.
All right.
In my tier list, that's how I feel about like the serfs. Like I don't have a reason to not like the serfs, besides his content. But like his Twitter is fucking brutal. Like I normally just mute people, but so many of my fucking mutuals like him that they're constantly like retweeting his and liking his shit.
And then you're tempted to look at his shit, even if you have him blocked. You're tempted to look at all of his things.
So I think I don't remember if I unfollowed him or if I blocked him, but I did something. And it's like it has nothing to do with the way he was in DM. So it's literally just your content and your Twitter takes.
True. True. We're waiting on Eris still.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Yeah, and Connor has.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, and Connor has a lot of mutuals.
Yeah, I think I just
thousands
broke 8K.
Every time some motherfucker follows me who has like 2 followers, you're always following that person.
Yep, I'm the only real communist.
It's true. Evenly distributing the follows.
I'm flattening the hierarchies through Twitter mutuals.
Exactly.
Does Vosh follow you, Layman?
No.
Because I saw he responded to you, and I'm like, I wonder if that's because he follows you.
Probably because I responded to Layman.
You should follow me.
Yeah.
You should.
I should unfollow you.
Vosh still follows me.
Fuck yourself.
I'm actually considering how hard I went after Hassan. I'm kind of surprised Vosh is still following me. So.
It's because you're so nice. You're nice to everybody.
I try.
Vosh, unfortunately, Vosh did unfollow me in the Great Sockdom Purge.
Yep.
Oh, did he? Did he follow you?
No.
I was like, what the fuck?
Dude,
that fucking guy does not follow you.
I posted so Destiny's friend doesn't follow me, right? So I did like a thing where like I took a snapshot of Vosh that said like that shows that he doesn't follow you. I did a snapshot of like a stupid Zoomer post, and then I did a snapshot of him following me, like implying that he followed me for a stupid Zoomer post. And that was the first joke, so that did well. So the second joke was I snapshotted Destiny like not following me, and then I snapshotted a meme that said it's like I followed my dick places I wouldn't go with a gun. and then I snapshotted him still not following me.
I remember that. It was fucking good.
Talk about shit Twitter takes.
Yeah.
Destiny's friends has like the worst Twitter takes imaginable.
He's like, he does this thing where,
We've all called it out.
yeah, we've all called out the Mott and Baileys. That motherfucker, like, will say, like, he hasn't actually said this, don't fucking cancel me. He'll be like, oh, I really, really hate black people so much. And then everyone will be like, what the fuck? And they'll go on to stream and they'll be like, all I'm saying is that there's some, there's some problems that are caused by racism that lead to disproportionate, statistically more significant, blah blah blah. It's like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. It's, although I do think he calmed down with the Mott and Bailey thing a little bit since everybody kept pointing it out. Like I haven't
Who are
seen
you talking about?
I haven't seen it as much.
Like when Destiny will say
Destiny's
something
friend.
like really
Destiny's
inflammatory on Twitter, or yeah, sure. When that individual will say something like that sounds like really inflammatory on Twitter, and then everybody will be like, "What the fuck? Why are you saying that?" And then they'll like go on a stream to debate him about it, and then they'll realize the take is a lot more agreeable than what they thought it was because now they've gotten past the like inflammatory rhetoric and stuff.
Anybody who comes over to your house after a coffee date, you have to fuck. Like,
It bothers me because it was like a dude he was responding to, and it's like, what are you like? What narrative are you pushing?
do not bring them over to your house unless you're ready to give them anal. And then
Someone will go on stream and he'll be like, all I'm saying is there's social expectations in society that lead people to having certain expectations, and you just have to be prepared for those expectations.
And that is how you deliver that.
That's all
message.
you have to do. Yeah.
But there's I know we're not in the show yet, but like there is something to be said for having in like an inflammatory or an intentionally inflammatory position that you then use to leverage into a better position. Like if somebody was intentionally rhetorically minded and then did that, I think that's actually smart. But the problem with a lot of the people that we deal with is they have intentionally inflammatory rhetoric and then they have nowhere to go. So you're like, hey, that's a shitty take. Do you have a better one? And they're like, no.
No, actually,
I'm just
bedtimes are
fucking
fascism.
crazy. I'm just fucking nuts. What do you mean?
That wasn't a cry for attention. That's my real perspective. And you're like, oh.
I mean, Destiny's
Well,
pretty
that's
obviously.
troubling. And that's why you're on the internet and not outside doing something else.
Yo, y'all keep saying that fucking touch grass shit, but like, I mean, I've been vaccinated for months and I still don't like touch that much grass. I don't know.
Yeah, but you're married, dude.
True.
Like, I feel like that. I feel like that makes you a grass toucher if you're married.
Going outside is
Outside,
cringe,
and I'm
dude.
like, it's cold? Really? The sun is shining and you're
No,
warm.
don't go outside. Just log on and never log off. That's what you do.
Oh my god. I don't know. Did Contra ever delete that fucking tweet? That was just like the best thing that she ever tweeted, where she was like, never
She
grow
has so many
past-
bangers.
Yeah, never grow past your trauma, never heal.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
People took offense to that.
Well, I mean,
People take offense to everything she says.
Yeah, but still, it was like instead identify with your trauma and never heal, never make progress, and use it as an identifier for the rest of your life, and yell at people on Twitter about it. I was like, holy shit, Contra, you're calling out like 70%.
Yes.
70% of Twitter leftists right now. It's like, ooh.
Eris.
Yo, Eris, get the fuck in here!
Yeah.
Fuck!
Where's LSP with the hard J? You know.
That's enough. No.
Yeah. For those of you who missed it, even though Layman doesn't want to talk about it, I think LSP temporarily forgot that we weren't on a private Discord chat, and like he just got a little edgy when he was talking to Spectre on the last.
Oh
referee.
wow!
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Oh, like he literally
Censor it if you need to.
No, he just used the word Jew, but he used it like a slur, so it wasn't a slur.
God.
But he was like. Spectre, shut up, you fucking... And then I was like, whoa! Whoa! Let's slow down. We're live, buddy.
Hey,
Eris.
someone let someone who's not real in here.
Now there's two of us.
Yeah, now there's two people who are not real inside of this call.
Tay,
That's
say
really
hi.
weird.
Who are they?
I don't know.
This entire call is taking place.
Well, there's
right
three people, right?
now.
Because there's
Right
three
now.
Canadians in here, so.
Oh,
True.
Okay, I was wondering how many Canadians are. There's me, Eris, and who else?
Me.
Connor?
at least they're not.
Oh, you?
British
Okay, cool,
people.
I'm just warning you guys. I just ate something really spicy that I was not prepared to handle, and I'm in a little bit of pain right now.
So you might shit
Oh,
yourself.
That's why.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Wait,
Very
are you-
traumatic
David, I was
experience.
waiting for the response. We didn't get one, so I just want to keep it moving.
Wait, do you mean like physically you ate something spicy, or do you mean something happened to you that is?
Oh no,
like,
I
not
physically ate something spicy.
Oh, okay. sorry.
It's not a metaphor.
She wasn't memeing on Twitter.
How do I respond to this?
She wasn't meaning on Twitter.
Connor, was that Taze in your background?
It is. Taze is
Yeah, Taze is right in the
Hi,
background. Yeah.
physically here. Everybody should be donating or subbing or going on to Patreon because he is slaving away in the background building the new computer. That was only
Nice.
that was only possible thanks to the community. But the
But you-
community needs to reward
you have
Taze
him
because he needs
building-
money.
You have him building the computer for you while you're on a panel talking to people?
Yeah.
He's not paying him either. Everyone
Not yet.
watching, he's not paying him.
Not yet.
I don't know.
It's dedication.
Yeah.
Feudalism.
Hassan Piker 2 over here. Not
Yeah.
paying.
Did you see that Hassan had hundreds of thousands of dollars and he didn't keep it for himself? I was impressed.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
What
It
happened?
was cool.
He participated in a Squid Game charity event, and then I think,
Oh, yeah.
I think
yeah.
him and Pokimane were the winners, and they
Oh, that's
actually.
even worse because
Well-
charity is like a capitalist, like.
I know,
like a
but
conspiracy.
hey,
Yeah.
but
Yo,
everybody
guys.
was complaining that he had a lot of money and a lot of influence, and he didn't use it for anything positive, and he used his money and his influence for something positive. So that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Carrissa and I had an argument about this once, but that's
Yeah.
okay. We don't have to get into it.
I had an argument with Hunter about this for like 5 hours total.
You talked to Hunter about it for 5 hours?
Yeah, there
That's
are like
crazy.
two different. I
Jeez.
convinced him. So
I wish I could
What?
fight with my wife
Oh,
about
for
Twitch
fuck's
politics.
sakes.
I started
Okay.
talking about Twitch politics, and her eyes roll into the back of her fucking head.
I feel like that means she's a keeper.
True. True. Yeah, if you have like a normal wife who like
Yeah.
goes out, does wife things, you know.
that
You
just
tell
means
her
I'm
about all that
extraordinary.
We can't both be terminally online for the sake of our son.
True.
That's fair.
You have to pay attention to the kids, of course.
Yeah.
All right, we should start now, I think. Are y'all ready?
Yes.
100%.
Absolutely. Perfect. So hello everybody watching. My name is Layman. And today I wanted to get a bunch of fucking moderate fucking libtard centroid people inside of a call today, and I wanted to explore that word centrism, what that word means. Nobody ever gets, discussions about it, really talks about it in depth in a way that's accessible to a lot of people, especially on like the, Connor is on the part of the Twitch community and stuff, and so is Eris. And I think a lot of people have a different idea of what that word means once they talk to reasonable people like us versus the people that they're used to dealing with, this like sort of like straw man idea of it that people have in their heads and stuff on the internet. So I want to know because I know that all of you have identified yourselves with that label, at least in my interactions with all of you, of course, to some degree. And I want to know like what you all mean when you call yourselves that. And Connor, you can go first, I guess, and we'll just go one by one.
Yeah, so when like one person is saying like don't purge an ethnic minority, and then another one is saying purge an ethnic minority, then you pick the exact middle of those two positions, and then you advance that as policy.
You kill half of them. Yeah.
Like, no, okay.
Obviously, that's what it means. Yeah,
There
of
are good
course.
people on both sides.
I did that just for the clip people. So no. It's the fact is that like a lot of people. I've lived a lot of places. I've done a lot lot of things. I've been in different communities and integrated into those communities. And what I found is that there were like coherent worldviews within each of those communities. So if you're talking about like politically libertarians or conservatives or liberals or progressives or whoever, they all had like a coherent worldview. And then if you're also, I've traveled to other countries, like linguistically, culturally, there's coherent worldviews. And what I found was that while I had a natural preference for the worldview that I had been raised with, there were positives and negatives to every community that I became integrated with. And maybe my worldview wasn't the only one that was permitted to exist. And maybe it wasn't the only one that was better than all of the other ones. So what I found was that when I traveled into new communities or whatever, it was cool to kind of take the positive parts of either a political faction or a linguistic group or a cultural group and then integrate it into my worldview. That way I could become a better person over time. And that I carry that into my politics because I've been so wrong about so many things in my life that it's hard for me to stand up and say like, no, I have the perfect ideology. It's unassailable, no criticism, no change, nothing. This is it, and I'm going to defend this until I die. And unfortunately, we don't deal with a lot of people who think similarly in this space, unfortunately.
Okay. I'm going to go to Eris next. Eris, what does that word mean to you?
Oh my god, I have no clue what it means to me, to be honest. I go back and forth between like deciding, am I a centrist? Like usually like on average, and I mean, I exist in such different worlds that the term centrist is just so relative to whatever world you're in. When I'm talking to a bunch of like American conservatives, they often talk to me like I'm this crazy extreme leftist. And then when I'm in like a Canadian lefty circle, they think I'm almost like a fascist. And so it's like it's so hard to know like where that is. I guess the reason why I often call myself a centrist, even though I don't even know if I don't really think I actually am. It's just because none of the other labels connect with me. I find that I actually have, it's very rare that I have a point of view that's like right in the middle. I guess like there are like a few specific issues that I can think of that are more like in the middle. But it's mostly that like I have some views that can be extremely right wing. I have some views that can be extremely left wing. And I can have some views that are in the center, and they all make sense according to my own set of like moral
Like your own values and principles and
right?
stuff. Yeah.
But they don't jive together in the boxes that like are currently set for us. So it just like wouldn't make sense. So like, for example, while I would agree with like lefties on something like trans issues, I'll have huge disagreements with them when it comes to like criminal reform or something like that, or in the military. So it's like but if I'm in a room with a bunch of like righties, they're probably gonna think I'm like an SJW with some of the shit that would offend me. So it's like I feel very politically homeless. So that's why people often, or sometimes I often call myself centrist.
Interesting. I'm going to go to Doomer next.
All right. So it really depends, I think, whether you're talking about real life or online. Because in real life, pretty similar to what Eris said, a lot of people would think I'm basically a communist or something. But like, you know, like in terms of mainstream American political discourse, I'm like 95% left or something like that. You know, and Counterpoints is probably like 70% right or something like that. But you go online and we look identical because everyone else is just like completely insane and proposing some like just, you know, there's all these ideologies that are like, no, let's just completely tear down society and do something totally different. So like I like, to me, like what a centrist online is someone that's like concerned with like pragmatism and isn't like proposing some sort of radical restructuring of things, basically. Because, you know, if I was to go to a party, I wouldn't be seen as a centrist. I would be seen as an extreme leftist. But if we're on a Twitch panel, I'm certainly going to be a centrist. If there's, you know, I'm between some, you know, an anarcho-communist and an anarcho-capitalist. I'm going to seem very reasonable by comparison.
All right, fair enough. I'm going to go to Carrissa next.
All right. So similar to pretty much everyone else, I would say that people in my real life, especially my further right wing family, would see me very far left. But I also can definitely identify with not being for communism versus not being for fascism and being in the middle, obviously. But yeah, so I feel like a big thing for me is not being an ideologue. And I think that's where I think a lot of other people kind of fall into these traps of like having this idea, having this like theory set in place without really being backed up by much data. So what I like to do before you even like actually like set a position or even like engage very much with a position is I like to actually like really research it and talk to other people who have different positions than I do and see where they're coming from. So like for example, even stuff that Eris is talking about, like prison reform, I don't know that much like data on that. I don't know if I would have a position on that. Um, and I think that's where, as like a centrist, I would want to see both sides. I would want to hear both sides' argument, and I would want to see the data involved, and then make my decision. And I think generally speaking, with most things, the truth does lie somewhere in the middle with policy situations. Um, and then I think with other things, such as like trans rights and that type of thing, I think the other side tends to rely more on fear rather than like a legitimate like concern for like a legitimate concern regarding why they believe the way that they do believe. So I feel like with that, I think you're right that it's almost like the example that was brought up earlier, where it's like, you know, someone genocide versus no genocide. In my position wouldn't be usually in the middle, but I think the people who would be pro genocide tend to have that position because of fear or because of some misleading quality. And I think that's where a lot of like more radical positions happen, is because of being either misled or having this like fear of an opposing perspective. um so that's kind of where I would be with most policy things. I think that there is truth on both sides, but I think it's important to follow the data. Some ideological things, I think it is there is the position to be more extreme, and I think that is important, but I don't think that disqualifies you from being a centrist.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. It was good. All right, Sid, you have a very small YouTube channel, and I wanted to save you for last because I think that your channel is great.
Oh wow, thank you.
Playing favorites right now.
well,
Want to lift up the little guy?
well, I appreciate it.
Thank you. So I would like you to close us out for the openers.
Yeah, sure. So I actually am a moderate on most issues. I think that the theme of hearing out both sides and seeing how there are valid points to both has come up again and again, and I agree with that. There are like two things that I am not a moderate on. I am anti-war and I'm pro-freedom, which is why I call myself a libertarian centrist. Like the last couple times I've taken the political compass quiz, I know that quiz is kind of a meme, but I always end up like deep down in the libertarian axis and just a little bit to the right, but touching the middle line on the left-right axis. I think that like the world has a bunch of complex issues that we face, and they're all important, and we have to solve them. And I don't think that a lack of nuance is what's needed. I think nuance is really important to find a solution because, like, the further out that you go from the center, the more likely it is that the people who hold these positions are basically falling. They're not really. They don't really have a philosophy. They have like an ideology, and that is kind of, I would say, dangerous. And yeah, that's about it. Like the bottom line is, we're all in this boat together, and we have to figure out a way to get along. And there are only two ways that this can end, and I don't want the unspeakable bloodshed. I would rather like let's just figure something out, which is why unfortunately, if we're gonna have a government, it's gonna be the freaking milk toast centrist things, and if we can figure out a way to at least get people at least a little bit happy, then I think that's the best we can aim for right now.
Yeah, I think that with me, the reason why I use the label, and I think I'm closest to probably Eris on this, where I kind of go back and forth on using the label, because I used to stop using the label. I stopped using the label for a bit, and I called myself politically homeless just because I was worried that the word centrist might have these ideological connotations. But I don't really think that there's like any other word that can like describe my beliefs. And I kind of started realizing over time that like a lot of political labels, like you're not supposed to look at them, and I think some people do this and I don't agree with it. Some people look at them like they're like religions, you know? Now some people act like they're religions, but then some people will respond to people who are just using a label casually, just to be, this is just like generally where I am, like I don't really care that much about it. I vote for whatever the fuck, and like I do that once every 4 or 5 years or whatever, and like that's is what it is. But yeah, I don't know. See, I think that I'm sort of a little bit of everybody here. Classic centrist fashion. I feel like I'm
definitely shit.
like so sort of where I come at it from is I have first principles that I hold very strongly to, that I've thought very deeply about, and I don't care whether it's like a conservative reform or like a progressive sort of reform. I don't really give a shit as long as it fits within my first principles. And it seems like, and I have first principles that necessarily require that I have to sort of like listen to concerns of different people for social cohesion's sake. So like if somebody's a conservative, I'll recognize that they're coming at an issue from a totally different, like more, maybe not totally different, but a different moral foundation or a different temperament or different motivated reasoning or something like that than someone who's more progressive. And what I try to do is when I'm trying to figure out like, okay, like, and I'll do what like Carrissa said, I'll like try to look at data and stuff, try to figure out what's like pragmatically the best thing you can implement that will lead to a certain outcome that I think is good. And I'll be like, okay, so I have to, as best as I can, get every possible different, like, you know, normal Overton window group behind this so I can get these people to like back up the idea that I agree with. And those ideas happen to be like sometimes supporting one side, sometimes supporting the other side, you know, whatever. And this just kind of leads me to like, you know, so like one of my first principles is communitarianism, and that's not collectivism. It's like we're all individuals. We all have all of our individual traits and talents and qualities and all that stuff. But we also have to recognize as well that we're not completely autonomous from our broader society, that we all do influence each other, and we do, and pragmatically, cooperation over like needlessly dividing people, creating conflict where there might not necessarily need to be conflict. And if there is conflict, we should be trying to attenuate that conflict instead of sort of exacerbating it.
Can I
What's
interject?
up?
Because like I'm
Yeah.
hearing the same thing from everybody, but I also think I'm seeing the problem, and I think I see why people don't identify with this label and why it's not attractive to young people, and why you know, it's kind of difficult to navigate in the space. And the truth is because it's a fucking pain in the ass. That's why. It's because you have to like care about people's feelings, and you have to consider ideology, and you have to do research, and you have to be pragmatic, and you have to ask yourself like, well, what is the ideology that I hold on to versus what do I think is the practical application of this ideology, and what do I think is capable of happening within my lifetime and my kids' lifetime and my grandkids' lifetime. And it's all these like extrapolations that, like, trust me, I love getting into my head and fucking, you know, going on a fucking bender of like tangents of like interesting ideas, but at the end of the day, it's a fucking pain in the ass. Whereas if you have an ideology that's preset with like 6 moral foundations and 6 moral principles that you can then just extrapolate into every situation ever, then that's an infinitely easier way to think about the world. It's super easy to find your tribe, and then it's really easy to attack other tribes. And that's actually like one of the things that I try to do, which is probably frustrating to a lot of people in the political space, is I'm not here to convince you to be like me. I'm not even here to convince you to be a part of a new tribe. I just want you to think about, like, does my tribe hold like the secrets of the fucking universe, and are they 100% correct about everything? Because if I can get you off of that perspective, then you will be less likely to engage in violence. And that's one of the things that's really frustrating for me, is when I see these young kids and I see these like zealous ideologues, they don't care, because they're not the foot soldiers. They're not the people who are going to get in trouble. They're not the people who are going to get arrested. They're not the people who are going to get killed. They're just the prophets and the preachers of the ideology. And I think there's like a special contempt that I hold for those people, because I don't think they're going to be where the rubber meets the road if these ideas were ever implemented.
Well, I almost want to be. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I almost want to be more charitable to the people that Connor's discussing. And Connor, you kept mentioning that these, like that it's a pain in the butt. Like, I forget the phrase he used to get into this stuff.
The
Like,
ass,
pain in the
not
ass,
the
sorry.
butt, the ass.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
was being a centrist about that. I guess, like, to me, it's
Penis.
I don't even begrudge people for having that, and I don't even think they're lazy. I don't look down at them at all. It's completely inefficient, right? To like expect someone, with how large and enormous this world is. Like, I've dedicated like my life to studying, okay, a specific nature of a specific battle of a specific year of a specific like category, right? In a specific region from a specific perspective, right? In history. So it's like, and that's how academia works. So it's like, it's crazy to me to expect, and I think and even academics don't find truth, even when they dedicate everything to it. So it's like, to me, it's just crazy to totally expect everyone in society, in order to like gain some kind of respect or something like that, to to have to do all this research. I don't expect that, and because of that, I don't begrudge political ideologies. I think that they're useful. I wish there was one that defined my ideology, and maybe I'll make one, or I'll find one. But I think what I would prefer, instead of telling people like, you need to do your research on everything, right? I would just like, or tell people to be centrist. I would prefer to just kind of instill this concept of, I like the concept of like being a moderate much more than like a centrist, right? Where it's like, you like an idea, like, so say you're a communist and you really connect, you read Marx, you've read some good criticisms of capitalism, you played Cyberpunk and you really agreed with Johnny, okay? And like, just like a lot of this stuff. And but even if you're a total communist and all your opinions like link with Marx and I don't know, like the majority of communists, you're still like, you still have like a sense of skepticism. So like when you read Marx, you're like, oh, I really don't like Marx, view on Jews or history, or like, or I think that they were right here, but I disagree with the Soviet Union and how they acted in this way. Like, I would much prefer, I just wish we taught people like critical thinking skills. And those things like can apply to anyone, whether it's like I don't know, like a blue collar job to something like very, very, to like a white collar job. And I think that that's much more doable than expecting people to do tons and tons of research. Like, and yeah.
But
Yeah,
I have a whole rant I want to go on, but I think
I will let you do the rant.
Yeah.
Because Carrissa wanted to say something too.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I want Carrissa to go. Then you. And so I want Carrissa to go. There was something that I really want to riff off of Eris too. Then I'll let you go, Sid. Carrissa, kick it off.
So I completely agree with you, Eris. I also think that it's important to realize that typically more radical people tend to be lower income. And I think that goes for both right and left. And I think the reason for that is because they've like lost hope, right? The system isn't working for them, so let's dump the system. But if you like look back historically, like the system is very different than it was like 100 years ago, even, you know? So I think there's like a lot of room for growth within our system. And I think that's what we need to be pushing. Because if that's a really common thing I hear from more radical leftists is like, we just need a new system, our system isn't working. And I'm like, okay, well, it's not like, what makes you think that we can't change our current system to accommodate the needs that we feel like we have to accommodate? So I feel like, just as Eris was saying, like, emphasize the moderate side of things, and that yes, our system is elastic, even though it doesn't always seem like it is. Like 2 years ago, I would never have thought that, or maybe 3 years ago, that like payments would come from the government, like $1,000. Like that would never be in my mind as like a possibility. I was so I feel like there are options for the future, and I think we can dig out of some of the holes that we're in, but it is going to take coalition building, and it's going to take a more moderate perspective to do that.
Yeah, and something I want to riff off of Eris on too. You said something that I really loved, where you said, like, I'm not trying to make people like centrists. I'm not trying to make them have a middle ground, because you don't like make somebody a centrist, like in the sense of like, oh, I'm going to literally bring your position to the exact middle of everything, right? Usually, like, you have a perspective that I usually roll with, which is sort of, you recognize that like there are people that are just going to have these ideologies in society, and that's fine, and like they can exist. But what I would want to do instead is just recognize, like, yeah, like, you exist, you have your own values, you have your own motivated reasoning. I'm not going to change your values, because I don't think you really can do that. Just me personally, I don't think you can change someone's values. I think if someone's values are reframed or changed in some way, that comes from like some deeply like personal experience that they would have. I'm not trying to change anybody's values. I know that people are going to be more progressive, they're going to be more conservative, and that's just the way it is. And so what I would rather do is find ways to integrate these ideas into society. And if I have ideas that I've put the time in because I'm interested in it and I personally think it's important, if I've put in, research into this stuff, I'm not going to act like an elitist dick to people who are just living their fucking lives, who don't have time to read a bunch of fucking studies on whatever the fuck. And like, I want to let these people know, like, hey, like, I'm hearing you out. And like, because I'm hearing you out and because I'm recognizing that, these are the core principles that you have, here's an idea that I think would be good that can appeal to this. And, that's sort of how I roll with this stuff. And you and I, Eris, we seem to roll at it from a very, very similar position, where it's like, you don't have to be a centrist. Just be yourself. Be yourself. Have fun. And I'll work with it from there. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I just think that's great. And Sid, you may go now.
All right, I'm gonna start with the doomer take on the
Based.
Well, it's gonna sound doomer. So on the topic of research, because I agree that to someone who's uninitiated in the jujitsu of online politics or even real life politics, it can seem like it's a lot of work to do your own research compared to just having a manual like Das Kapital or Mein Kampf or whatever, and just go off of that manual and have your all of the answers to all the questions you could possibly ask yourself. Now, on doing your own research, I regret to inform you that we live in a post-facts world, and we have been living in a post-facts world for decades. I would say at least since World War II. And the two forces, like, even if you were to do your own research and get to the primary sources on every little nuance of this issue, right? And then you can say, like, I've done it, all the primary sources are there with the citations and the studies and everything. Well, then you kind of have to spread that message to others. You have to get other people on board. That's why, like, when my strategy for the last couple of years, because when you when you're faced with how like facts and evidence aren't really relevant in discourse, it's very soul crushing, which is why I said it was a doomer take. And my strategy to like come to terms with that has been to focus on information literacy and persuasion. So what I focus on is saying, because you can't fucking do all the research on everything. That's why most people choose not to do it. But what you can do is evaluate, detect bullshit and detect if this source of information is reliable or not, if that source of information is reliable or not. Do they agree on the who, what, where, when of an issue? If they can't, something's wrong. And oh, speaking of wrong, what was the last? How did your source deal with being wrong the last time they were called out on it? That's a really important thing to keep in mind for the future.
Point.
So it's all about choosing the giants whose shoulders you wish to stand on, and then just how can I say this? Get better at convincing people that they might want to consider change their point of view. Before I wrap up, I just want to point out two very insidious forces that have been at play all throughout the world for decades. Okay, confirmation bias and cognitive dissonance. I'm reminded of the flat earther who wants to prove that the earth doesn't move by putting a gyroscope and letting it run for 12 hours. And then when they come back, they're like, I guess the rotation of the stars above must be interfering with this gyroscope, and that's why it's moving. The whole thing of basically the strategy that I use and that I would encourage others to use is be charitable towards solutions that you don't want to agree with, and be skeptical of solutions that you want to agree with, and that'll kind of help mitigate phenomena like that. That's about it for now.
Okay.
Well, I guess panel's over and we're all convinced.
Yeah,
There we
we're
go.
all good. I totally vibe with all that. I think when it comes to like the information
agree.
Side of things that you were touching on, though, I think that's something that would require like more of an educational reform sort of thing.
Yes.
And like I'm totally down for that. But I think pragmatically, like instead, like up until then, I just got to work with the fact that people like they got to go to work every day. They probably have to look after their kids too, and they just don't have time to do all the things they need to do and then just chill and enjoy their life in a very, very baseline sort of way.
But
so,
I want to push back against this a little bit though, because basically my thing is like, I think young people are so fucking aggressive because they're young and they know everything, or if they don't know everything, they want to know everything. So they base their perspective kind of in that, looking for like solidity and foundation and all that kind of stuff. And they want to operate from that solidity and that foundation as if it were gospel, because that's comfortable and that's better. I think like a terrifying order is more comfortable than a chaotic like truth. So like a lot of people want to root themselves in that world, and where like I understand like being charitable and nuanced and I agree, like that's all fucking well and good and all that kind of shit. But also in these spaces or whatever, like that doesn't cut it. Because what happens is if you're always, I mean, Eris knows this shit. She's been on panels before. Layman knows this shit. He's been on panels before. If you show up and you constantly turning the other cheek and always being nice and always being nuanced and always being centered and always being peaceful, these people are just going to fucking scream talking points at you, act like they got a fucking dunk, and then walk away to their fucking audience of sycophants who are going to jerk them off into eternity. The only thing that's caused any kind of like cognitive dissonance in these people is basically when they are confidently wrong about something, you expose them for being wrong on that issue, and you drag them in front of their audience over that incorrectness. And while it's not like the nicest thing in the world or the most tactful or whatever kind of thing, it does work, even for dumb people, to be presented with cognitive dissonance, to be presented with a fact that's inconvenient to their worldview, and then for them to be bullied off of that. Because, no offense, I mean, but like, I don't know why this would be offensive, but like, human beings are reciprocal. And unfortunately, we're dealing with a lot of unsocialized children, and they need to be rhetorically bullied into good behavior.
So
I think there's a difference. I'm sorry.
Go on.
I just was going to say, I think there's a difference between influencers and just your regular Joe Schmo on Twitter, right? So I feel like I kind of agree with you to an extent.
Most of my rant from before was there was an unspoken assumption of good faith. So your point is valid, though. Sorry, Carrissa, you can continue.
No. I just was going to say, I think you're right that when you're dealing with an online content creator, I think it is effective to be like, hey, you were wrong here, because that calls into question the validity of their talking points, right? And I think that's actually good for their audience as well. But I think when you're talking more to individuals who aren't that, like, they don't have that large of a platform, and you're trying to convince them rather than their audience, I think is really, really, really important. And even to an extent, when you're talking to a content creator, to find out what is motivating their ideology and provide a better solution than the one they already have that is more backed up by, the facts or the data or whatever you're using to come to your conclusion. So I think being able to reach out, being able to understand is really important. And I think that's going to look a little bit different depending on who you're talking to. But I think that's like vital to be able to bring people over and de-radicalize them, I guess.
Yeah, and Connor, I see what you're getting at, right? And I think that the position is, I guess it's somewhere in the middle. And like sort of having this empathy and, understanding where people are coming from, understanding, what's motivating them, and then trying to appeal to that. But then also like just not being so, I'm listening to you. Your concerns are valid, to the point where somebody's like fucking dragging your ass. Like if somebody's getting up in your shit and stuff, then of course what Connor says is absolutely applicable. Like, true. Not only drag the motherfucker, but like drag that motherfucker within the purview of their own worldview, so everybody who's watching them, who has their worldview, can then be spoken to like by proxy, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you're showing how somebody is wrong within their own worldview, then everybody else who has that worldview is sitting there and they're like, oh shit, I'm also being challenged too.
But you also have to make it like fun. I think that's one of the interesting things about this space is like, if it's purely antagonistic and purely cruel and purely malicious, and one of the things that you just said I think is really important, where it's like it has to work within their own operative reasoning, it has to work within their own moral framework, because if you come after them maliciously but it doesn't make sense within their framework, they're just going to disregard what you said. But if you bring up a perspective that aligns with their like moral foundations or their moral theories, and then you bring up a contention that fucks with their head, that's one of the I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but like I get comments like a decent chunk of the time where they're like, hey, I was following this creator, they made this point, I kind of felt off about it, I didn't know why, you described why I felt off about it, now I'm looking at their content with a more critical eye. And that alone is like a pretty powerful thing, because like once you see that that gap in the armor, I almost used a correct basically what's
I don't know what's happening.
It's talking about military strategy?
No, I was talking about a gap in the armor. There's a synonym that's not Twitch safe. Oh
no. Okay.
Usually under the arm.
Oh.
I'm sure that's what you meant.
It's all right. I cracked myself up. So
I don't know.
It's okay. I'll DM you. So
Put it in the group chat, buddy.
Okay, so
When you can.
the gap in the armor, that can kind of be the thing that gets exploited and then opens into like a bigger thing, bigger thing, bigger thing, bigger thing. And I think that's what's powerful. And I think this is also part of the reason why centrists are resented in the political sphere, is because basically these people have a movement, they have an ideology, they have a goal. And when somebody, I think they literally call it counter signaling, where they have a goal that they're pushing towards, and you being that moderating influence and pushing against them, you're viewed as an enemy. Because even if you're not like a factional rival, you are delaying or slowing down the momentum of their movement, and that can make them resent you or hate you even more than like a sworn enemy, because a sworn enemy is predictable.
I actually think that's such a good point. I didn't think of like centrists really are resented immensely, and like they're the ultimate punching bag. But it's very rare that I meet someone that's actually like a centrist in the way that they're described by either the left or the right. It's like you have sentences of, oh, there were good people on both sides, like from Trump, but was Trump a centrist? No, he just said a dumb
Of course
thing.
not. Yeah, exactly.
And and like there's a lot of things that people say that whether they're lefty or righty, it doesn't kind of matter. So I don't know, it's very frustrating. What it really seems like is like people who have a moderate voice or who are skeptical, and as Connor mentioned, are like kind of slowing that momentum, immediately gets strawmanned. I noticed this specifically, like the issue that I kind of got known talking about, and where most of my education is in Israel Palestine. People call me a centrist all the time, and it's purely as an insult. It's like, oh, like she's like on the middle on whether or not the Palestinian genocide's okay, things like that, or like or she's in the middle on whether or not like Jews get to be wiped off the planet, like and it's very frustrating because I really feel like I have a lot to contribute, particularly with that subject, in getting people to be critical of like the narratives that they're being sold to from both sides. But that doesn't mean, but even though I say that term both sides, that doesn't mean that I think both sides are equal, or I think that
or that they're the same
the answer
thing.
is in the middle, right? It just means that I disagree with both of those narratives. But I find myself, like when I use the term both sides, like I almost get like, I cringe at myself because I know that how that's going to be taken out of context, and it's very, very frustrating.
Because everyone will say that will take that as endorsement of the enemy, and you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, like you support the enemy faction.
And the truth is, like, I mean, the subject that I know about, the only thing that I really know about, which is like Israel Palestine, to me, it's actually such a good example of so many other conflicts around the world and how complex they are. And how it's not as simple. You can call out like evil or war crimes or things that you think are horrible, but that also, and those things can be just as horrible as you described, but that doesn't mean that there is like a side where one is good and one is evil. And as a good lefty, you need to take the side of the oppressed, and because that kind of logic is what led to a lot of the problems that people get really frustrated at Israel for, right? Because people saw Jews as being oppressed, right? And it's like one of those very frustrating things that really gets to me. And I'm sure that that's an example for like tons of other issues. So I don't know. Like, listen, I guess I kind of do the same thing that Connor does, that like I hope, even though like I'm talking about like this very niche political, and it is a niche political issue, but that makes people think, wait a minute, like if this is a lot more complex than I realize, and this narrative, this Zionist narrative is wrong, but also like this Twitter pro-Palestine narrative is also wrong. Maybe like I'll start thinking a little more critically about all the other political issues that I've been kind of taught about who's right and who's wrong.
I want to break something down, but I want to point out that Doomer is riding our centrist coattails without, contributing. So, like we need to call him the fuck out.
It's because Doomer just agrees with everything I'm saying. So.
Yeah, Doomer just agrees with everything. That's what a centrist is. You agree with everything.
It's actually going to be a bummer. I'm really blackpilled on a lot of this stuff. I don't want to bring it.
Why don't you elaborate on why you're blackpilled?
Yeah, seriously,
do it.
I don't know. 20 years of talking to people.
Wait,
I
are
mean,
you
just-
only 20 though?
No, I'm in my mid 30s.
Okay. Yeah.
I started
me too.
talking to people at 0 years old.
Yeah. No, but like, I think that's part of the problem. Like, and the reason why we're resented though is because like some narratives are actually very easy to like mentally extrapolate. Like, I know that Eris was saying like we need to not strawman. But for instance, like, I think it was on the Young Turks or something like that. Somebody said like, "Oh, well, I just analyze the power dynamic and look at who's fucked over, and then I take that person's side." So in Israel Palestine, I take the side of the Palestinians, and when I look at the PLO versus the normal Palestinians, I take the side of the people. And when I look at the man who's the patriarchal head of a family and he beats his wife, I take the side of the woman. And like, so that's where I'm saying like that moral certainty and that moral formula offers a certain level of like reassurance where you're like, I can look at any social or moral situation, easily identify like an aggressor and an oppressed person, and then take the side of the correct person and then fight for their advocacy. And like that's kind of like the fucked up thing, is because it's comforting to play into like binary tribalism. But the truth is, like, this is completely illiberal, and then I am a liberal in like a moral foundations perspective, where I think that like if I could sit down with my enemies and make them understand my perspective, we might not agree, but we might not have to kill each other. Yep. Whereas if we don't have that opportunity, and they try to impose their worldview on me in a way that I can't contend with, that robs me of my liberty, then I have to fight and kill them. Like, it's not and that's actually like the shitty thing in fighting for like a liberal democracy or a constitution. That this is part of the hypocrisy that a lot of people have problems with American empire. It's like, how do you drone strike somebody in the name of freedom? How do you torture somebody in the name of liberal democracy? They can't square that. And I wouldn't be surprised if Sid and I disagreed on this, but basically
I was about to disagree with you, so yes, I do.
Centrist infighting. Yes.
But that's what I was going to say, is that because liberalism, libertarian, and like freedom-based moral philosophies are not like genetic, they have to be culturally perpetuated. Cultures have to be perpetuated oftentimes through force, which involves some level of violence. So I've kind of made peace with that level of violence, no matter how hypocritical that might seem.
Well, I was thinking about it earlier today. I think, like, man, stealing is a really great lifestyle if you can get away with it and have no morals. And I totally can see the appeal in this like abstract moral vacuum that I'm existing in for this hypothetical. But the notion of who started it, that's the key thing that will let me evaluate whether a use of force is justified or not. And there's not always an easy answer, unfortunately.
I also kind of want to, I don't know if anyone on the panel was kind of pushing this idea, but it seems to be pretty common one within kind of centrist circles, that whenever someone has an extreme perspective, it's automatically incorrect. And like, it's just as unlikely to be incorrect. It's just as likely to be incorrect as, someone having a centrist position is likely to be incorrect. Like, it's totally like irrelevant. Like, I'll give you an example where people call me a lib all the time, particularly the tankies. I have no clue why, because I don't identify as a liberal. But when it came to the accusations of the Uyghur genocide, right? Like, this was like a very it was seen as this extreme left, extreme tanky perspective to be critical of the news that was coming out about what was going on with the Uyghurs, and to question it, right? People got called genocide deniers, which I never like calling people genocide deniers on accusations of crimes that are going on right now, like, no matter what, right? I feel like it sets a really problematic precedent. But like, obviously a lot of news has come out lately that a lot of those claims that, from the beginning, we only really had one source. People had multiple sources that all came from one source. And now kind of like all the people that were really pushing this idea that China's, doing this evil Uyghur genocide are like, everyone's kind of moving away from it, but not acknowledging that they kind of put the cart before the horse there. And that's kind of like, it's very, very frustrating for me to watch, because I wish we could just be like, oh, like, maybe tankies aren't wrong on everything, right? Even though they're tankies, and tankies have like really dumb ideas all the time, trust me. But like, it doesn't mean that if they say that the sky is blue, that means that the sky is pink. And I wish we could get out of that tribalistic thinking, and even centrists can get in that boat where we see someone like if they have like an extreme perspective, like they're automatically incorrect. Because sometimes they do have points, and I do think while the government of China has a lot of problems, right, it often, like, we have to remember that we're often getting served very like propagandist and like anti-Chinese news on a regular basis in the West.
Can I? Yeah,
I think Doomer wanted to say something. I thought I heard him creep in.
Yeah. So like the best position, if we could actually change people's behavior, which I'm pretty skeptical of, but the best thing to do would be to just reserve judgment and to not have strong opinions about things before you look into them. That's sort of the root of a lot of these problems, is that people have an ideology or a belief or a moral foundation or whatever, and then they're exposed to a situation, they just immediately apply it without going through any of the process of, trying to verify whether or not what they're putting forward is actually reasonable. And like most of these problems would be solved by just reserving judgment. It's basically a cure-all. But the problem kind of with what you just said is that I never meet people with extreme views that reserve judgment at all. Like I can't think of a single one. Like all the people I know that reserve judgment would be called centrist in the way that we're using it here. Well, so like that's kind of my problem with a lot of the extreme people.
Some people do.
Well,
sure,
but this is please save Doomer from himself. But the but that's kind of the part of the reason why I do what I do. Where like literally other centrists, fuck you all, by the way, Eris, Layman, and Drew. They participate in the panel scene and they're like, yo, this is terrible for me. This is like terrible for my mental health. I'm gonna back out because this fucking sucks. And I'm stuck in there taking fucking lumps because the truth is like, that presuppositional thing that you're saying where it's like incident happens, we must have an opinion on it the next day. Well, the only fucking people who are willing to do that are people who are fucking extreme, who don't give a shit about the details.
Yep.
So if you want people to consider the details, and if you want to expose this audience to like nuance or taking a break, or hey, here's a historical analog that might like fuck up your perspective and we just don't know yet, and all this kind of shit, you got to get in there and you got to be just as mean about waiting for the details as you do people who already know everything about everything, and that's unfortunate. And then I want to point out two things really quickly. Learning from your enemies, right? Like Sun Tzu or whatever. I think he said like, know yourself and you'll win 100 battles. Know yourself in the enemy and you'll never lose 1,000 battles or some shit like that. Basically, the point being that the best thing that you can know is the territory, yourself, and your enemy, and that will be the best way to conduct yourself in any kind of combat. So basically, what I was going to say is like fascism. It's the ideology that you can't touch. And yet it is the ideology that taught me about political corporatism, which was the de facto philosophy of nations for a really long time, where you treat everybody within the nation state as a part of the body. And that's why you defend against external enemies so viciously, is because they're like a pathogen. And then you protect people within your core so viciously, regardless of whether or not they're right or wrong, is because they're a part of the body. So while I don't think that is necessarily, like, I can see how that philosophy can get toxic super fast, but that's a really interesting political conception that actually explains the fascist worldview fundamentally and could be like practically applied in a positive way. And then we were talking about like the Chinese Empire. I didn't say flexible authoritarianism was good, Carrissa.
Yeah.
Anyways, so well, hold on. So I just got done praising fascists. I'll praise the CCP for a second. So
same thing. It's the same thing.
One of the things that the CCP does that I think is brilliant is like the 5-year, 10-year, and 15-year plans. They literally go to their public and they say, we have a goal. We have a vision in mind that is 5 years out, a decade out, and 30 years out. And we want to implement this. And these are the objectives that we're going to do. Part of the seesaw of American democracy is we don't have a coherent long form plan. So we just seesaw between these two parties without really knowing what the fuck we're doing. And as a result, we spend so much energy on who gets to be on the top part of the seesaw, for 30 seconds before they collapse back down. That, like, while this is an okay way to, like, maintain political stability, if you have, like, an emergent threat that's very important, we should probably, like, come together temporarily and form a long-term game plan. And the fact, I don't even know if that's in the American consciousness. We look at the war on terror, or if we look at climate change, we don't even have the capacity to think long-term. So that's where, despite the CCP being an Orwellian authoritarian nightmare, I would actually praise them for having long-term thinking.
I don't think the problem is that you can't agree on a long-term plan. It's that you can't agree on what to do about it for long enough to do something about it. I think that's the main issue. I think that, I want to live in a clean world with peace and all the children are fed and well educated. That's easy stuff to agree on. The hard part is the how.
I feel like
I was
what
about to
it
say,
comes
have
down
you
to-
talked to a libertarian recently?
He is one, so
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Have you talked to an anarcho-capitalist recently?
There's good
I
arguments for and
have.
against child starvation.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And unfortunately, this is all too real. Where they're like, yeah, you create perverse incentives, and then starving kids become dependent adults. And dude, it gets really fucking ugly really fast. So
I'll take an optical hit right now. So
Oh, no!
my part of my journey
no!
towards being a socialist, a 20-year-old socialist, who unironically argued in favor of a world government. I remember arguing in
I
my
used to believe in
20s
that
with
too,
people
yeah.
saying, "Hey, we need to unite. We need a one world government." Anyway, part of the path towards that guy and the guy that I am today was being an ANCAP. So I'm familiar. I still have plenty of them in my network, and I'm the resident SJW when I talk to them. So I can understand. Okay, I'm gonna.
I don't think that was an optical hit. Just so
No,
you know.
I haven't
coming.
gotten to
It's
that
coming.
part yet.
Oh
So,
no!
I'm trying to formulate it in a way that won't make.
If you
me
talk
look
about
like
age of
nonsense.
consent, I just got to let you know, Connor.
No,
streaming
forget
on
it.
Twitch.
No, there are practical skills that you learn by having a job, and I think that barring people from getting a chance to learn those skills before they're like 16 or something might be a disservice. I'll say that.
I know.
That's as good as I can
Hot.
say.
How do you feel about owning personal nuclear weapons?
Oh,
Uh-oh.
Stop,
yeah.
please.
The
That was a
centrist
joke.
take.
I'll take the hit. I'll bite that bullet.
McNukes.
Really?
I
Okay.
think Carrissa wanted to talk, then
Yeah,
I
Carrissa did want to talk. You're right, Carissa. You can go off.
To wrap
Please.
this around to a more optically happy place.
Thank you.
Yes.
What I was gonna say is that I feel like what it comes down to is just like the practicality of the situation, and even if like one extreme has even like good ideals, or even if you think like maybe 50 years down the road socialism might be a good option or whatever, I think what can bring everyone together now is realizing that that's not realistic in like the next 10 years, talking about like a 10-year plan, and to figure out a plan of what is realistic, and actually just really engaging in the here and now, and just taking a step back from the ideology. And I feel like that doesn't happen all the time, because I feel like we're so immersed in theory, or even with like the research that we do sometimes. I think, all of the anti-vaxxers say do your own research, right? So it's like we don't even know how to do research.
Yeah, that's why I gave up on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't tell people to do that.
Yeah, but
So I know. So I
Wait,
guess
Carissa, continue. Sorry.
my like point would be that I think we can bring the radical position down a little bit and be like, hey, let's work in the here and now. Let's figure out a good plan, a good and hear each other's perspectives on like why it might work, why it might not work. And I think that you need to have open dialogue and you need to hear other people's perspective and not just be like, oh, you're just one of those young ideologues, just like shut them down. I feel like that's important not to do that and to be like, I understand where you're coming from, I understand your ideals, and I understand where you, and we're not even going to touch about communism in 50 years, but let's focus on the here and now and what can we do and stop like dwelling as much in the theoretical.
yeah, the main takeaway for me for like what I try to get young people to consider or younger people to consider is not whether or not I'm right. I know I'm fucking wrong. I'm so fucking wrong about so much shit all the time, but I'm going to tell you what I think and why I think it. And then so it's just for younger people to consider that they might be wrong in their assumptions about the world, and to consider like, hey, like if I'm wrong about this, what does this imply about the world, how I conduct myself, what's actually going to give me a good life versus what is like ideologically correct, like all these things that we have to balance out in a relatively short human life. But just as like an example, like I meme about like invading down to the Davian Strait in Panama so we can become like one North American empire. Okay, that's a fucking bananas take. But what it actually does is it gets people to think: what are the actual cultural differences between like Anglo North America and like Hispanic like Central America? Why do we have these like firm borders? We have problems that we're not addressing because of like weird border crises, the drug war, and all that kind of stuff. And what's technically preventing us from being like a more unified political entity that at least if we don't come together like militarily or economically or governmentally, then what is going to forge the destiny of the continent of the future? Because right now it feels like Americans are playing defense on an unsustainable hyper capitalist kind of like hedonistic northern Anglo society, and then it seems like Central America is like just this fucking drug war corrupt kleptocracy. How are we going to mesh these societies to be successful in the future? And so it's a stupid fucking thought experiment. I don't expect anybody to take me seriously, but I hope they're like, but what I hope to gain by that is them asking like, why not? What would be the problems? What are the differences in these societies? What makes them dysfunctional now? Why do we draw these lines? And it's not so much about like creating like a coherent worldview that has all the answers. It's more about getting people to ask questions. And this kind of brings me to my final point. I think a lot of people, I said this before, I'll say it again. I think a lot of people prefer a nefarious order to a like chaotic truth. So they would rather the world have like a clear ideology, even if it's a bad ideology. The CIA or the Jews or the lizard people, they control the world and everything sucks and they sacrifice children. Like that's an evil world to live in, but it's understandable. Whereas reality is a lot more complex and frankly a lot more terrifying.
And boring. Reality can be boring.
Reality can be boring, and something I wanted to
boring. Sorry, really quickly. Boring for long stretches of time, and then instantaneously terrifying for very brief moments.
Yes.
And that is like, that's mind blowing because you could just be surfing your fucking Twitter and then somebody has like a heart attack or a stroke or a car accident or that like somebody robs them or something. So you're stuck in the monotony of life, and then fucking insanity just comes and fucking bushwhacks you. And I think that can be terrifying.
I think that's even why like you have those like conspiracy theories take off so quickly is people just get bored with like the regular news. And I think it's like the lies, fake news travels like 7 times faster than like legit news because people like want the drama as like a form of entertainment.
Yes. See, well, this is, like, I agree with that completely. So this is something, so This is something that I hear a lot as a Canadian, and it frustrates the fuck out of me, but it happens. And I only hear this from people. This is like specifically like an online thing that I usually hear. But I never hear this IRL. This actually goes into, just to quickly go off into a little tangent, because Connor was pissed that I don't do Twitch panels and stuff anymore for mental health. But what I have done is I have channeled that energy into IRL politics and like IRL stuff, and trying to influence stuff and stay informed within my local area, my local area, and like and my country and all that stuff, and try to be more focused on what's going on here. And something that really frustrates me as a Canadian is I'll hear a lot of people say things like, "Oh, well, I don't really know that much about Canadian politics because American politics is more entertaining to me." And that makes me lose my shit, because if you're focused on like what's happening in your local area and your community and the politics and shit that go around that, I would say it's not only just as entertaining, but even more entertaining, because there's like shit that is being passed that is like materially affecting you. It's affecting the poor in your area. It's affecting like poverty rates, fucking housing, the environment. All of this shit has like immediate effects on people within like local jurisdictions. And
I disagree with you.
yeah, I know you do, motherfucker, but that's okay. I love you. So,
what do you know? Like, that it's completely efficient and normal to care about the world's superpower and their political position, because it's still going to be affecting you.
I agree with that. So what I'm saying, so yeah, and that's a fair point. So what I'm not talking about people who are like focusing on the U.S. in like from like a foreign policy perspective or a trade perspective. I think that, as Canadians, we should care about that stuff completely, right? That's absolutely important. Things that affect us, that the United States does or influences, I think focusing on that is important for sure. What I have like trouble with is when people like, when we go on the Twitch panels and stuff, there are like people who are Canadians that will know this like niche information about something happening in like California or Oklahoma or something like that. And I'm like, man, if you just focused on like your local area instead of whatever is happening here, you would have like a much more like meaningful time with
Here's the
your
problem with
political
that,
aspects.
is that no one is debating Canadian politics. And so if you're like in the panel scene, or you want to be engaging in political discussions, and let's be real, like no one's really interested in those issues. They're interested in like the values that underpin them, and that's like what people are really debating. So they're gonna like interchange and it's usually going to be American topics, and it goes the same thing when it comes to like celebrity news and movies and everything, because of like the cultural dominance of the United States over like English language media. So
but can we?
I think that totally makes sense. I understand it's very, very frustrating. But
I was only going off on this. Yeah, I don't want to get into like a debate about that necessarily. So
but I agree, and so like so the fucking no, but this is the thing.
The reason why I just wanted, before you go, Connor, just the reason why I was bringing this up in the first place was just going off of the point that I'm pretty sure it was Carrissa made about like people not finding things immediately entertaining to them, or immediately, I shouldn't say entertaining, I should say like emotionally evocative to them. And what I was trying to sort of go back on was like with when it comes to things that are like meaningfully impacting people in the most direct way, that there are ways that you can make that exciting as well. And that's all that I was trying to say, and that it might be better to do that.
But okay, so going off of that, all right, I do think though that American politics is more exciting. And you mentioned that you think that Canadian politics is just as exciting, especially that if it's like affecting you as a Canadian. But like, I don't think that. I mean, maybe some people think like that, but when I look at American politics, I'm a history major, right? It feels like when I look at America, it feels like I'm looking at like 50 years ago. Like in like Canadian politics, like they're debating things that we debated so long ago, and so it's like fascinating to watch. And it's also more enjoyable because my rights are not at they're not at play here. So I'm not as like emotionally invested, and this way it can be a lot more fun. So like when I watch, when I turn on CNN, I can be like, oh, this is really fun. Wow, like this person's really winning here and stuff, and it's not something that's gonna be like tangibly like affecting my life. So I think that's one of the reasons like why I like you look at something like the Texas like abortion law, like conservatives in Canada are never touching abortion to that level ever, right? No,
To that
they're
level.
Not to that level.
not to that level, right? Like
They're
the
pragmatic,
like
yeah.
even they're not even going to come close to something like that, right? The most that they would come to is like criminalize certain aspects in very extreme scenarios. But we are so extreme on the opposite side. We literally have no legislation when it comes to abortion. Like, it's not necessarily legalized, it's not illegal. Like,
Yeah,
nothing's
I hate
legal. Like,
that.
you can, in theory, in a
I
criminal
fucking
way,
hate-
like literally abort your child, okay, like when it's about to be born, and you're totally fine, kiddo. Like, we've already decided on this. It's
Yeah.
like we're so on the extreme end. So when I look at the United States and they're like still debating like these things that we've already kind of, I already agree with, because I mean, I'm an immigrant, so I like my family, like we moved to Canada knowing the rules that they had and the laws that they had, and agreed with them. So it's just fascinating to watch the United States like debate these things. And there's also like the United States is so big in comparison with Canada. Like, it's huge. Like, I don't know, like in Canada, I forget the exact number, but we're tiny. We're absolutely tiny in terms of population. And because of that, you have like the craziest, most extreme like views in the United States that you just don't have in Canada. Like, I just don't meet.
I
I just don't meet
understand.
people with those.
The Canadians
I-
are driving me
Whatever you
crazy.
might be
Shut the
talking
fuck
about.
up, Canucks.
Wait, yeah. I wanted to, yeah. Okay. We got to get this back on track, yeah.
No, don't. I have 2 points, you asshole.
Okay, all
Okay,
right.
so why do you guys think lefties are always obsessed with like lowering the age of consent?
Okay.
and defending
Libertarians
pedophilia?
are too.
Connor,
Yeah.
Connor,
I didn't know that
say
was a
the things you want to
leftist
say.
thing.
Okay.
Say the things you want to say.
All right. So
I
there's
just want to change the
We
topic.
have a philosophical disagreement, Eris. We're at a roadblock. It's okay. It's okay.
Okay,
I
there's
feel
no
like with anger, I'm
friends.
scared.
Both
Eris!
of your positions.
Everyone
roll.
calm
We'll
down.
talk about this
Everyone
off
calm
cam
down.
some
Let's
other time.
breathe.
It's okay. Connor, say what you wanted to say.
Okay.
Go for it.
So the number one point that I wanted to make was political hobbyism that Eris just brought up, which I had to like majorly check myself when I first came into this space, because I realized how much of a political hobbyist I was. I don't even think I voted until like maybe like 2 election cycles ago, but I've always been interested in like power and history and philosophy and like the arguments and like all that kind of stuff. And that was actually the reason why I didn't vote, was I said like I don't feel like I should vote because I don't know enough. And then basically what I realized with hobbyism, especially when it comes to like critiquing like shootings or murders or like law enforcement investigations or anything like that, part of the thrill is being able to participate in something like grotesque and violent and gross with very little personal stake that you have to lose. So one of the things that I had to do, especially when it came to talking about like Middle Eastern affairs, because, you know, you serve in the military as an enlisted person in like a job that it has nothing to do with like intelligence or, or like the macro picture, and you become an expert in Middle Eastern and North African history, right? Like that's how it works, is you serve 4 years in the military and now you know everything about the Middle East and North Africa. So I had to really check that, because what to me was an internal perspective of the military interacting and our rules of engagement and our culture and all that kind of stuff. What I had never considered was that they were going to be immigrants to the West that had specifically fled violence that I was party to, and me being casual about violence and death and destruction and mortars and explosives and suicide bombing and all that kind of stuff, that was going to fuck them up, because that's literally what they ran away from.
Wow.
So yeah, and then
Okay.
then did it
You roboted for a
roboting?
second. Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt
can you
you.
repeat that last part?
Yeah, what'd you say? You were like, blah, 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 blah,
I'm
you know?
waiting for my internet to catch up.
You're good.
Because that's literally what they ran away from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so basically, like, that was where I had to check my political hobbyism, and then am I still roboting?
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Try it again.
Hold on,
Try talking again.
I'm waiting for your faces to move properly. Yeah, I think you're.
There we go. Okay, so let's.
All right, stop! No, stop
There we
wiggling!
go.
Stop wiggling, you sacks of shit! All right,
I
so
thought I was helping.
yeah, so okay, so the violence. So the point is,
It's
like,
radical.
I could be casual and fun about violent subjects that actually hurt real flesh and blood people that I would end up talking to on panels. So I had to check my political hobbyism because I was being casual about things that fucked them up. And then the other point was basically, we need to figure out how to leverage the interest in politics into real world change. And what I'm saying is taking 2 to 10% of that energy, of the debate bro energy, and then leveraging that into like canvassing or electoral politics or community action or something like that. And I'm not saying get rid of all of it, because I think we all get fucking jazzed up on, you know, talking about like blood and guts and suicide bombing and philosophy and, you know, whether or not sock Twitter should bang animals, right? But like past that, we should leverage that political energy into actual community engagement, because you probably could get young people to do some really cool shit.
Yeah, well, that's what I've been trying to do in my own life, and something that I realized too is that, you know, because something that we focused on a lot here is how people hate the moderates because, you know, everybody is having all these ideological wars, and the moderates are just there like, why can't we all just be friends, you know? And so it's like, you know, when you know, I find that most people in society, this is after I've sort of, you know, taken a break from all that stuff and kind of focused on my locality a lot more, and did what you said, Connor, which is to take the debate bro energy and try to use it in the real world. Yeah, a fraction of it, you know, you want to discard the terminally online shit, of course, but you know, take some of that and use it in the real world. I find that like, and there's data on this too. Most people don't like care about politics the way that people that we engage with on the internet care about politics. Like, most people don't give a fuck that much. They care about it insofar as like the voting decisions they have to make every however so years, and then the rest of their time is just spent like living their lives. Unless you have that initial like hobbyist interest in it, you're not as ideologically motivated as everybody else. So I find that, yeah, because like, and I can only speak to Canada, of course. I know. Sorry, I don't have American data on this, Eris. Okay, but just fucking with you. But most people in Canada like actually identify as politically homeless. Now, I don't know how polls are defining that typically, but usually the way that they're looking at it is like how at home you feel within like a particular political faction in your country that's like more aligned with a sort of like party, right? Like if I was to apply this to the US, it'd be like, oh, like 60% of people don't feel at home with like the Democrats or Republicans perfectly. They don't feel like they fit into that box. In Canada, it's like, well, people don't feel like they fit into a liberal or social democrat or conservative box, right? Or like some like libertarian box. So when I'm engaging this stuff in real life, I find that it's very, very easy to be like, hey, like, what do you care about? Like, what are some things you care about? And then you can sort of like in a very, very neutral and like chill way, and not in a way where you're sort of talking down to people, just have these casual conversations about their values and their morality and stuff like that, and things that affect them directly. And then you can take the solutions that you've spent all this time doing your big brain 10 head research on, and you can then implement that into society and get people in your community more on board with shit. You can do it in town hall meetings and shit, if you ever go to those, where you can actually talk to like legislators and have those same kinds of conversations with them, albeit in a more chill way with less screaming and blood sports and shit like that, of course. That can happen sometimes though, and it's fun. But you know, for this stuff, I think it's very, very important to do that. And political hobbyism is fine. Political hobbyism is cool. Like, if that's what gets you into that sort of shit, I think that's a fantastic thing. Like, it really is. That's why I don't try, even though I act LARPy about it a lot, I don't try to like shit on people too much for like, you know, being invested in online politics and stuff like that, because it can be like a really good vehicle to care about real world issues and stuff like that. And I think that's awesome.
Well, so I just want to say this really briefly, because I don't know if I rammed it home during my point, but basically leverage the passion of online Twitch and Twitter politics into a smaller amount of actual action. So for instance, like we get so many people who are so like just engaged and angry and frustrated and passionate and like all that kind of stuff. You really like that isn't a detriment. That is a vehicle or an engine to lobby some of that attention, influence, and money into something IRL and positive. And I think that's why we, at least me in particular, that's why I hammered Hassan so hard, is because, like, dude, out of 40,000 people who are watching you daily, who are making shitloads of money, if you just took a fraction of that and positively applied it, even if it was in like the tiniest amount of increments, that could be like a real world impact. And so I think we're, at least for me, I'll be honest, I'm envious of that much power, money, and influence, because I think about what could be accomplished. But I don't think it's realistic to expect like Hassan to like look into the camera and be like, hey guys, everybody is flying to Los Angeles this weekend so we can pick up trash for 48 hours straight. This is brought to you by Monster Energy Drink, and I'll basically pay for all your flights. I don't think that shit's happening. I don't think anybody would fucking show, right? But taking like 1% or 2% of the audience, or 1% or 2% of the cash, I think you could do some real shit with that. And so that's where I want Twitch politics to evolve past this fucking dick measuring contest and into something that, while silly, this is a silly space. It's like Camelot from fucking whatever that fucking movie was.
Monty Python?
Yeah. Fucking Camelot from Monty Python. It's a silly place, but we could leverage the silliness into something real.
I could just jump on that really fast. I feel like I think both are legitimate. I feel like you are going to have real life implications if you are a large streamer or do YouTube or anything like that. You are going to have that. Politics, the walk in politics is the talk, right? That is the real world change. It's all about rhetoric. It's all about influence. And I think there needs to be those people. Should people obviously do things with their money, like for the local community, I think that would be awesome. But at the same time, I think they are doing like a lot by having such a large reach and etc. I do think, however, that local community work is, I guess, kind of like swept over a little bit. And I think people underestimate the amount of personal fulfillment and fulfillment even of their community and like affecting their neighbors' lives, affecting their families' lives they could potentially achieve, because they are a little bit more, they're too terminally online. And I've noticed that in myself. I literally had a friend who moved into this area and they're doing community work before I ever did. And I've lived here my whole life. So it's like, wait, what am I doing? I think that's fair, but I also think some people just really thrive. And you're always going to have a cost-benefit, and you have to do a cost-benefit analysis, because there's going to be opportunity costs. How much good are you going to do in your local community versus speaking online? And that always has to be evaluated.
But this is I'm gonna take issue with you, and I'm surprised Hunter caved. Fucking Hunter caving to you. So
he did not.
He did not.
Oh, wait,
okay,
yes,
good.
he did. No, sorry. No, I misinterpreted what you said. Continue. Sorry.
So what I was saying is that, like, the if I understand Sig correctly, he started out as a socialist. He touched some grass, got a job, and then he realized that some of his worldview was incorrect, and then he modified his worldview through interacting with the real world. And so, like he
was also an anarcho-capitalist,
right? Which we should all hate him for, which is fine. but politics, like the pundit class or the rhetoricians or whatever, I think that they would be better served through experience with the practical applications of their ideology. And I think that's part of the problem, like part of the reason why I reserve criticisms for the Voshes and the Hassans and all that kind of stuff, especially when the rhetoric gets like really graphic or really violent, is because I think that comes from a distance that is only possible through lack of interaction with the real world. Whereas if they did become involved in like more grass touching endeavors, then they'd be like, oh fuck, like I thought that I was going to institute like revolution just by creating class cultural consciousness and radicalizing a younger generation into socialism, and then they're going to implement it because they're going to be so upset with the means of production. But the way that economics is distributed. But I started trying to take part in like, creating these alternative structures to the capitalist society in order to rob the state of power. And it turns out like logistically fueling the institutions that are going to decommodify basic human need. That's hard as fuck. Logistics is hard. Like managing resources is hard. Managing institutions, regardless of whether or not they're public or private, is hard. And through that experience, they can then turn around and inform their audience like, hey guys, I still think decommodifying basic human needs and workers owning the means of production is fucking based. But at the same time, the truth is we're going to have to do some hard shit in order to implement my vision into the real world. And that's like, to me, that would be a better message to be telling teenagers than like fucking shoot your landlord and then we'll usher in the fucking utopia.
I mean, I definitely see that. I agree that people, or at least
say
content
I
creators in
agree
general.
correctly, please. You got to go the Dave Rubin.
I agree.
No, I'm saying I agree that I agree that that really any political commentator should be encouraging the people who follow them to get involved in politics. I think that is fair. I think that's true. I don't think that is just because they're socialist or because they're capitalist or whatever. I think that's just generally a good idea because you want people to help out the community, and I think that is even good for people's mental health. My concern is more just, I think from what I'm hearing from you is more like, oh, these socialists are such ideologues. Let's just like, so therefore these like huge Twitch streamers are doing a bad thing by not telling them to go touch grass politically in their own communities. And I'm not sure if I'm fully on board with that, but I'm also not a socialist. So like from a socialist perspective, I feel like that's a little silly. But I think just generally speaking, it would be good for everyone to encourage their listeners to go and be more politically active in their communities. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think Carrissa. Yeah, I think I'm really on board with what Carissa's saying, because it sounds like, Carrissa, your message is more about universalizing it in a way where you're not like antagonizing a specific group of people, but just like portraying the general advice as being good enough, just sort of in a vacuum, where you can apply it not just to like this group of people, but you can apply it to this group. You can apply it to liberals who are terminally online, conservatives who are terminally online, tradcon, whatever the fuck people believe in who are terminally online. And I think this is a good thing. But Connor, I will let you say this. There's something that Era said earlier that I want to riff off of, where she was talking about like not assuming that like everything that's extremist is like bad by default. There's something I really want to riff off of that, a little anecdote. So go on, Connor.
No, go ahead. I think I'm roboting, so you go first.
Okay.
Before we got on that tangent, I just want to point out I appreciate the conversation on local politics that we just went through, because it's very easy to feel powerless in this world, and engaging in online politics is a very easy way to feel like you have some sort of control. And I haven't pondered the question, like, what can I do at the local level in a long time? So I at least wrote it down. The answer might be nothing, but I can at least ask myself the question. Maybe there is something I could do to at least, change the inertia even one iota in my local area before, say, the end of the year. We'll see. But thank you for at least planting that seed in my
what I would recommend. So something that I did is find a political party, even if you don't feel like you fit into it perfectly or like agree with everything that they do. Find like a local political party that you think is the most aligned with you. Then just like apply to be a volunteer at that. Give them your email, your phone number, or whatever, and just if they call you and email you, send some shit your way. Just accept whatever they give to you, and like don't ruin your life for it, obviously, but like, if you have the time, like try to do stuff like that. Figure out like when there are town hall meetings in your area and just like go to them, because a lot of the times there's not a lot of people in them. This is something I learned. A lot of people don't go to those except for like angry fucking boomers who are just there to like scream at people.
Yeah, I wrote town hall explicitly. That's probably something I can find out when the next one is.
Well, the thing is that like if you're taking your like 10 million IQ fucking research brain self into that room, you are kicking ass. Like you're gonna actually like influence shit, right? And stuff like that, and like canvassing, like what Destiny did. Stephen Bennell II, the man. There was a guy in his area who was a Democrat. I think I don't think he like lived there. I think it was like where his son lives or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, there's this candidate I really like, so I'm gonna use my clout to get like a bunch of my fans to go out here, and we're gonna like canvass for this guy and try to get the word out there about him and stuff."
Yeah, he did the same thing in Georgia, and I think he did the same thing in Nebraska. But the thing that I wanted to say though was that basically, like, when it comes to the young people in particular, though, they might not have like the energy. Like, so for instance, like I was working full time, I was going to school full time. So while I engaged in like researching politics or whatever, jumping on Twitter was a lot more reasonable than taking 3 hours out of my week in order to go do a political action.
Yeah.
But what I would say is once you get into a better situation where you either only have work or only have school, so you only have one thing to pay attention to, the hobbyism, if you're spending 8 hours a day on fucking Twitter, right? You can chop out 2 hours a week. And that's what I was trying to say. Like, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be big at all. It can be fucking tiny. It can literally be like going to like a church group or like a mentorship program or something like that. It doesn't have to be big at all. It just has to be saying, what's fucked up today? What can we improve? What can I improve this week? And then let's do that. And then what I would say too is basically the problem with trying to apply this philosophy evenly to everybody is because like liberals, libertarians, and conservatives in particular, they're so focused on fucking bootstrapping and the individual and my family and all that kind of stuff that saying like, oh, hey, motherfucker, you need to take a fraction of your energy and then you need to put that into the community. They'll be like, why? But then their rhetoric will be, oh, well, the government doesn't need to take care of that because charity and private entrepreneurship will. And I think that's like the cudgel that you can use to beat them with, where you can say, you said that the private sector would take care of it, but you personally are not doing anything in order to help out with these communitarian ills that face us as a whole. If you want to prove that like the government doesn't need to do it, then you need to prove that people are willing to go outside of their comfort zone in order to contribute to the whole on a voluntary basis. And unfortunately, I think there's like there's so much room for us these days to not have to take that kind of ownership in like the communal setting that like we just don't have to, because nobody's going to yell at us. Sit in your fucking house, sit in your apartment, doom scroll on fucking Twitter fucking 16 hours a day. Who's going to yell at you? Some asshole on fucking Twitter, but that's part of the fun. So like take out, like just chop out 3 hours of that shit and then make it something positive. And I tell you what, because I want to be held accountable for my own fucking words. I tried to do some community action. I went to go speak to a local representative about police reform. She gave me a laundry list of shit to do. It got difficult, and I stopped doing it. That's exactly what fucking happened, but nobody held me accountable for it. So, right now I'm in a precarious position where I'm doing YouTube and I'm working super hard in order to make ends meet. Once that, temporary danger has passed, I want to be held accountable for the shit that we're saying for the past 2 to 3 hours. I want you to say, Connor, you're talking big shit about how all these rich motherfuckers need to go out into the community and do shit. Why the fuck aren't you doing something? So, yeah.
Sure. I think we all basically agree with that, right?
Say it right.
I still think at our core, I don't know how many people here are streamers, but I think at our core, like, we're entertainers. And I think, like, if we we might try to convince ourselves that we're other things.
Yes.
I try to convince myself I'm an educator, but in reality, I'm an entertainer. And that's my role. And I think it's really, really important. And I think if you're responsible with your platform, you need to like let your audience know that they need to be fact checking you. They need to be critical of you and the things that you say, because it is impossible to be a good streamer and be as rigorous as an academic in like trying to come up with the truth, especially with like being a good streamer, like doing it for many hours and doing it every day and all that kind of stuff. And I could tell you, just like as a streamer, and like I started this year and I grew way more than I expected, but my more educational videos, like the videos that I'm most proud of, are the ones that always do the worst.
Yep.
And it's frustrating, and I've talked about this with like Destiny and Vosh, and it's the same thing for them. And it like, and at the end of the day, like this is like a job for a lot of us, right? Like you're trying to, like Connor mentioned, like he's trying to get a paycheck here. So you're gonna do what helps you make ends meet.
Yeah.
And I think like we just gotta, this is I really don't want people to get their politics from Twitch.
Mhm.
I
Too
don't
late.
want people to get their information from Twitch. I try my best, and I try not to, like, I have my own personal politics, like, but I rarely push them on my audience. Um, I'm lucky that I can do that because I've kind of like found this niche within like doing history and commentary. But what I try my best to do is try to like enable them to be better at their own politics, and and eye it more with like a critical lens and all of that kind of stuff. Which I'm really proud of, because I think like I have like this weird mesh community of like extreme socialists and extreme conservatives and centrists and stuff. But everyone gets along because we all have like very similar philosophies on how, on like, on how knowledge works and all of that kind of stuff. Um,
Yeah, there's
but
common values, so there's like social cohesion. Yeah.
it's one of the reasons why I stopped doing panels. I actually didn't stop doing panels for my mental health. Like my mental health was very happy with panels. That's like, I don't know
Good.
what that says
Come
about me.
back.
But I
goddamn.
stopped doing panels. I mean, I still sometimes do them, like especially like for friends. But I one of the reasons is, and I'm sure you noticed that on this, like just on this panel, is when you get into streaming on a regular basis, you, especially like if you're normally a solo streamer like I am, you get used to making your sentences as long as possible and like your points as long as possible, and to just keep going on and on. You're not good at making concise points, and in order to be good at debating and panelists, like I used to be much better at that stuff, but ever since I started streaming, it's like I had to pick one skill, and I picked the streaming skill because that was much more useful financially for me, which
Can
is like making things as long as possible. And so I end up like people rag on Demon Mama for this all the time, but I almost like don't blame her, because it's like it's very, very hard to be streaming every day, and making and getting used to kind of owning the room, and then suddenly boom, you're in a different spot where you have to make your points concise, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Can I, but this is kind of what I'm talking about with like the formula to leveraging positive out of the negative. Like I agree with you that we're, entertainers primarily or whatever, but that doesn't mean that somebody can't learn awesome shit through an educational lens, or learn a new idea. So I mean, some of the coolest shit that I've ever learned, Adam Friended is in chat. Literally, I heard about Jonathan Haidt's like fucking moral philosophy fucking shit for like 2 years now. And literally in some bullshit fucking debate, he pulled up a diagram of the actual like how it works or whatever, explained it for fucking 5 minutes. So out of a 20-hour stream, where they're pausing the video every 3 seconds, I'm just shitting on you there a little bit. I learned something really cool, and it's kind of like a teaspoon of sugar makes the medicine go down, right? And then also when it comes to like audience size, like it does kind of suck because you pour your soul into passion projects. Like, so for instance, like media breakdowns or like Warhammer breakdowns that I do and all that kind of stuff. And some of it does incredibly well just because it hits the right beat at the right time. And some of it just fucking tanks. And you get like, you're used to getting like 2K, 3K viewers or whatever, and you get 500 or some shit like that, right? But what I've noticed is out of that 500, you can have incredibly engaged comments. People who are like, they're looking at it, they're breaking it down, they're kind of mulling it over in their head, they're incorporating it into their life philosophy and all that kind of stuff. And that's where I would say, just because like, if somebody else is a creator that's listening to this, metrics are cool, but if you're building out a small core of people who are like introspective and consuming new perspectives and all that kind of shit, that you should build quality and quantity at the same time, and you shouldn't get discouraged if quality sometimes comes at the stake of quantity. So for instance, like Eris, I almost guarantee, like, is your Anna Frills fucking shit like 10 times your normal metrics versus your history shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks. That sucks that one dude sleeping with one girl a year ago and then dramatic bullshit for a year and a half.
I mean, I made a few historical references during the drama.
So you educated your audience while, teaspoon of sugar, right?
Well, that's kind of like the way that's the solution I found from it, where it's like I can do like the fun stuff and like sprinkle in the history there, and hope that what I do is I inspire people to love history, to appreciate history, and do more research themselves. But I'm very aware that my primary focus and my primary contribution is not educating my audience.
So the Babylonian dictator Nebuchadnezzar was in an open relationship, okay? Kind of similar to the streamer Destiny. Like,
Okay.
All she had to do was do
That's
the cuck
legit.
stream.
It's not that
The cuck stream in terms of Destiny.
that's why I said it's like history is just the drama of the past. So,
Destiny's based
and
interesting.
what a great quote that is. Like, honestly, like I almost feel like that should be like a channel banner, is like history, the drama
Thumbnail,
of the
Connor,
past
thumbnail.
or something. That is fucking beautiful.
If
No,
that's not
like a
your
ribbon.
tagline, it could be.
Yeah.
Totally.
For sure.
I actually recently Age of Empires 4 came out recently. And it's a huge moment for me, like as an adult, video game coming out, because when I was growing up, it was the first Age of Empires. No, it was the second Age of Empires that got me in love with history. Right? Like that was what kind of like spurred on that obsession and everything. And I always, when I looked back at it, I was like, wow, like, what a game. Like it's so historically accurate. It taught me all about Joan of Arc and these extraordinary empires and all of the stuff, and how cool warfare is and all this stuff. And anyway, so I start Age of Empires 4 and it's a great game and everything. But like, I'm now an adult with somewhat of an educational background, like playing this, and I was saying like, why can I put my infantry in in wedge formations? I don't like that. Like that wasn't a thing. Wedge formations weren't a thing. Why do they have that as an option? Right? I thought this game's supposed to be accurate. Like, like why do they have this going on during this year? Like,
are you playing this on stream and criticizing it live? Because that would be a good education.
Content
You would be the teacher that Demon Mama is advocating for in her non-compulsory schools, using Age of Empires to discuss historical accuracy.
But like, it just reminded me so much of like I like created this image in my mind of like this game being so historically accurate and everything, but once I got more educated, it was not. It's filled with tons of inaccuracies. And if you're getting your education from Age of Empires, you're gonna have some problematic ideas, which I actually see the effects of in a lot of like white supremacy and stuff like that.
Wait, you're saying I can't play Mahatma Gandhi and like run the Indian Empire through all of history and then conquer other people?
No, actually not.
The imperialist Mahatma Gandhi. Yeah.
There we go.
But that's just, I just try to, like, it's important for me to be humble, like with that stuff, and I think streamers in general need to remind themselves of that, because God, like, our audience does the exact opposite for us.
Yeah, something that I'll tell people all the time when it comes to internet politics is I'll tell them, like, listen, just like this shit is like really entertaining and stuff, but just like don't think that this is like a serious, like too serious of a thing where you're like, where you think that this is like how the real world is. This is how like real life like politics is like this crazy like internet drama shit about
because people put on characters.
Yeah, well,
correct.
that too, but also like usually the topics that are being discussed are like usually not topics that are being discussed like, like we were talking about a lot already, right? In their local communities and stuff like that. And that's not what people are talking about, right? People are talking about these really like sensationalized, online issues that they see on the internet and shit. Like Connor referenced it earlier, someone talking about how like, schools, kids should voluntarily decide to go to school or not. And like, that's a debate topic for like 3 weeks or some shit, right? And it's like, nobody debates that like in the outside of the internet usually, right? It's not like an Overton window, like yeah, exactly, right? Shit like that is like what you're getting into, and it's great. It's entertaining as fuck because it's like, holy shit, that's such a crazy fucking position, right? And you get to see people yell about that, and it's fun and entertaining. But at the same time, it's just important to recognize, like, but that's what it is. It's entertainment. And as long as you recognize that, I think you're approaching that very, very healthily. If you're doing that, or what Connor mentioned earlier, where you're having your fun, I think politics are fun, personally. I think they're fucking fun. But, like, make sure that you're just using the fun to do IRL stuff, and you're still engaging yourself in that, too. I think that, like, both of those things, as long as you're just recognizing that it's just entertainment, or if you're recognizing that it's entertainment, but you can use some of the motivation and the fun to sort of stay... what's the word? Conscious. I was about to say woke. Conscious of your local environment and stuff like that too. I think both of those things are really, really good. As long as you're just not listening to some crazy anarcho-communist, capitalist, fascist, whatever the fuck on the internet, and you think that this is like the real world and this is like a serious movement, then shit just gets really, really culty and weird. And that's when I almost start to feel, and I LARP this a lot, where I start to be like, go outside, motherfucker. Like, you know.
No.
But obviously, when you're talking to those people individually, like, you can't act.
Has anybody checked on Doomer? Is he still alive, or did
Doomer, are you okay, buddy?
Black pill him out of existence.
I think we black pilled him out of existence very, very early on.
Oh.
What do you think, Doomer?
I don't know.
Yeah.
The ultimate centrist. It's so discombobulating that he doesn't even know what to think about it. He needs to do more
I
research.
agree.
No principles.
I agree. Okay, so
There's points on both sides.
Wait, Connor,
Mhm.
hold on. There was something Era said earlier, and it's an anecdote, and we've been talking for like fucking like 2 hours, and I usually don't like to record over 2 hours. So there's something Era said earlier, way back, that I'm gonna pivot back to, because there was an anecdote that I wanted to give that I think is really, really relevant, and it's something that I really, really want, like a lot of other like people who consider themselves get labeled moderate or centrist or whatever the fuck to do. So Eris earlier said something that I thought was really, really good, where she said, if you see something that's considered like extremist or extreme, and you just kind of like don't pay any frame of mind to it, you just assume that it's wrong on face value because there's been all these actors throughout history, Joseph Stalin or fucking fucking Fidel Castro or whatever the fuck the flavor of the day is, right? Whatever dictator of the day it is. And you see someone with like similar beliefs to that, we're acting a little crazy. You see some socialists, some Sakaialists, as I like to call them, the correct pronunciation of socialist, Sakaialist, of course. You see, communists, and you see these like, right-wing populist, like tradcon people and shit like that. And like, if I'm talking to somebody like that, I try not to like assume that they're just like the extremist thing that like whatever like propaganda thing told me it was that day. So one of my best friends, or he probably is my best friend because we've known each other since we were like 5 years old. I've known him for a long time, and I talk to him about politics all the time. Like he's like an IRL friend, of course. He's like a literal communist. Like he is literally like a communist in like every sense of the word that you can think of. He doesn't like Stalin. He's not like a fucking tanky. He's like a communist.
And yet he lives in society. Curious.
Curious. But yeah, like he's literally a communist. And I learned like so much about the worldview through him that if I just listened to like what Ben Shapiro says about communists or what Steven Crowder says about communists or something like that, right? I would have gone in talking to my friend like a fucking moron, because not because I think communism is good, of course, because I'm not a fucking communist, and everybody knows I'm not a socialist or a communist. I don't even identify as a social democrat these days. Like I don't identify as.
What's wrong with communism?
Unbased.
Eris, please. So yeah, I know you're monarchist communism, the real centrism, right?
There we go.
You got the right wing communism, you got the lefty whatever the fuck, or fuck right wing monarchism, left wing communism. Anyway, yeah, whatever. Fuck you, Eris. So, fuck, where was I? Yeah, so he's a literal communist, and I was like, okay, so like, all I know about communism is what I heard through fucking Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and whoever the fuck. And, he'd be like, oh, Jordan Peterson's a dumb fuck. All he's read is the Communist Manifesto. He doesn't know all the ideas or all the theory or any of that shit. And so I'm an open-minded libtard. So I'm like, okay, give me what are like the arguments for this stuff? And what are some good resources to understand this stuff? And so he recommended me like 2 Karl Marx books and a book by like Friedrich Engels. And then he also recommended I read like Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky. And I read them all. And I spent all my this is when I was maximal political hobbyist. This is like 2019. I read all this shit, all of that shit. And, at the time I thought like some of the ideas were good. I was a lot more like left wing at this time. And I thought like some of these ideas are good. I don't agree with the prescriptions, but I think maybe some of the problems that these people are like diagnosing like have some accuracy to them. And then what I did was when I looked at all of this other information about like, like, okay, so now let me hear some arguments from like fucking Milton Friedman from like a capitalist side or, someone like that, right? After I read that shit. And then I started to read like, I'm like, okay, I'm reading like into all the ideologies now. And I started getting all these like academic books about like conservatism. There's a guy I recommend this guy to Connor because I think his philosophy system really well. His name's Edmund Burke. He's like one of the like the modern idea of conservatism. He's like one of the big like philosophers behind that. I read another conservative guy named like Roger Scruton. Then I started to read more like liberal stuff, like Jacques Rousseau and shit like that, social contract and shit like that. And I was like, okay, like I think there's a lot of like validity to all these ideas. So I guess now I'm kind of in this like centrist kind of space. And now I'm in this position where I'm a centrist and my best friend is a fucking communist. He's a commie motherfucker. And I'm like, now I get to
resentment in your voice.
I know.
Damn commie.
Damn commie. Those fucking commies. And I'm just like, man, I get to argue with him, but we're best friends. So it's not like mean or hostile or anything like that. And now I get to have like my ideas challenged. And now if I come across, and now as a centroid, if I'm coming across a communoid, I'm like, okay, now I'm familiar with everything. Now I've sort of like taken everything in its like strongest form, at least that I'm aware of. I mean, my name on YouTube is my name for a reason, Layman, because I don't have an academic understanding of any of this shit. I just try my best. And now I'm like, okay, I can come across these people and I can say like, hey, I'm aware of like what your worldview is and I'm not going to straw man you and I'm not going to be an asshole to you. But while I'm building up this strong case for what you believe in, here's why I think you're fucking wrong. And now I can do this in a way where the other people are like, huh, now that you actually understand my worldview and I feel like you actually understand my worldview and you're playing to those sorts of motivations, now I'm kind of reconsidering this stuff. So this is one thing that this is something that happens a lot when I talk to people about housing issues specifically. I know I'm rambling a while, by the way, so if anyone else wants to talk, I'll be done in a sec. When I'm talking to people about housing who are like leftists, right? So, they're coming at it from a place where it's like, I don't like that people can't afford to fucking live somewhere or they can't get access to housing and that we have like homeless people in the fucking streets, right? I don't like that. That upsets me deeply. So I think there are a lot of solutions to that require you to have to like be a free market like capitalist and maybe think more like a libertarian about certain things like zoning laws, for example. Where the libertarian in the room's like, whew!
Zoning laws, Jesus
fuck
Christ.
Zoning, fuck yeah. It's really, really easy for me to be like, hey, like you're a socialist, right? You should want to tell the government to get the fuck out of developers, shit when they want to actually come in and they want to build more housing. They want to be able to like compete with other people. And if they're competing with other people, they will subsequently want, prices will go down for housing and it'll be more accessible for people. Right. And you can still have some fucking social housing and that shit if the state can afford it. But you can also have this other tool in your toolbox to fulfill what you fundamentally care about. Because usually like the communism part of it is just like a means to an end, right? The communism part of it is a conclusion that they're coming to because they want to fucking like eradicate homelessness and poverty and class struggle and all this shit from society, right? So I can give this more like capitalist kind of solution to something because you're literally telling the government to get the fuck out of private industry when you're talking about zoning laws. I can give them this, but I can frame it to them in a way that isn't this libertarian way that I just described it as right now. And they can be like, huh, you know what? Like, I never thought about that. Like, maybe there is something about like that
Layman.
way of thinking that can actually fulfill my my ends. So,
Layman,
yeah,
I love you.
I love you too.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
I am old as shit and my bones hurt. And
you're like 7 years older than me, but okay.
I know. It's not as Indiana Jones once said, it's not the years, it's the mileage. And also, I want to take this opportunity to announce Taze has completed the computer.
Ooh.
Meaning that I want to get the fuck off this computer as quickly as possible and then throw it at the wall.
Sure.
And I want to run operating software and I want to buy Taze a beer after answering chat's question.
based. So I'm going to let you fucking go, and here's how I'm going to let you go. I'm going to start outroing everybody because I just went on a dope ass fucking rant that I'm proud of, and it's my fucking channel, so fuck you. And I'm going to I'm going to let everybody give a little outro about the overall topic and stuff, and then yeah. So Connor, you go first because you want to get the fuck off. So
No, I want to be polite. I want the professional edit to include your 5-minute rant on fucking nuance and centrism and friendship and housing, and I want to stay here with a stupid fucking smiling face until the very end. So please, everybody else go first.
Okay. Carrissa, you go.
Oh man. So I guess my outro would be that things can happen, progress can happen within the system, and that's something we need to be pushing. Also, it's always good to get involved in your community. I don't necessarily think it has to be always political. I know one thing, like for me looking for a job, I wanted something that I felt like I was contributing. And even if it's not something that you can do right away, going to school about something that you really care about, something that you feel like you're going to make the world better. Like I'm able to go into like a bank who really cares about environmental stuff. And so I'm like, I know that's not that much, but it's like a little bit of way that I'm able to like contribute, you know?
Mm.
So I feel like it doesn't always have to be political, but if you live your life with like really trying to fill up every moment with meaning, whether that be extracurriculars or what you're going to school for, or even your job, I think that's gonna do. And rather than just like looking at it as like, oh, this is something I just need to do to get to the next step of my life, that's going to be really fulfilling for you, and I think it's going to touch other people as well in a really good way. So yeah, that's pretty much all.
Cool. I'm gonna let Eris go next. Eris, are you here? You turn your camera off.
Hi, yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to play Cyberpunk and my computer sucks right now. I'm waiting for my new one because I'm not lucky and have someone to build it for free for me like Connor.
He didn't build it for free. The kind
Okay,
people
sorry,
of
I'm
my
here.
community paid for it. And by
Yeah.
the way, when I'm watching your fucking streams, I'm just hearing like fucking sub sounds half the fucking
Yep.
time. So
Those
so, yeah.
trumpets, baby.
Yeah, so I don't know how the fuck you don't have money for a new computer when like every 3
Oh, okay.
seconds of your fucking show is like burp a bang, burp a bang, burp a bang.
Oh,
He's right.
As a matter of fact, I want everybody when you're done here to YouTube the song
as a
"Timmy
lady, I don't
Trumpet
discuss
Freaks."
money.
That's what it sounds like.
I have to turn the trumpets off. Everyone's so triggered from it. Like those are like half of my YouTube comments.
Yeah.
But anyways, what was I saying? Yeah. Thanks so much for having me here, Layman. It's always a pleasure. And honestly, everyone here, it was finally cool to get to meet Carrissa because I've heard so much amazing things about her.
You too.
And yeah, you guys should check out my stream. I'm Aristocracy, spelled with an E. People in Connor's chat were calling me the South African, which like I don't know, like it's the first time that people are referring to me as a, you know, with my African heritage, so I guess I'm honored. But thank you. So
Our favorite South African Jewish Canadian.
There we go.
Now, Doomer, I'm gonna let you go. I know you have a lot to say in your outro, so
Yeah, first I want to apologize for talking way too much. I mean, other people didn't get a lot of room, to get a word in edgewise with me never shutting up. So my apologies for that. But yeah,
yeah, you were mansplaining a lot there.
yeah, what the fuck?
I was. Yeah, I mean, look, sometimes we can't help ourselves. But yeah, like if I had one message for people, it's to just reserve judgment. Don't take really strong opinions about things until you've looked into them. That would solve a lot of these issues. And yeah, that's about it.
All right, Sid, I'm gonna let you. Did everybody go? Yeah, everybody. Okay, Sid, and then Connor. Cool.
Okay, so on the issue of centrism, I'd say there are two main factors that play in most of the social problems that we face. There's the societal issue, and there's the individual and what they can do. And I think that lefties tend to overemphasize the societal issues and underestimate what they can actually do. And righties tend to do the opposite. They're like, the free market will take care of it, bootstrap, yada yada yada. And I think that we have to find a way to live together, because the alternative, I don't even want to speak about it. And that is, the other thing, always be vetting your favorite source of information and how trustworthy they are. That is vital. What did they do the last time they were wrong? That is a key question. And besides that, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. There are a bunch of people in this call that I've been a fan of for a while, so it's a little surreal for me. And I'm Real Sid Rock on most social media. That's SYDROC.
He's in a fever dream right now, a centrist fever dream right now. So, Connor, close it out, buddy.
Okay. Everybody should follow, like, anybody in my chat should follow everybody here. I had a fucking blast. I loved it. And then, yeah, so I agree. And I think that, like, so if there was, like, actually a takeaway, Twitch politics is a silly fucking place. It's like Camelot from a fucking comedic movie that came out 30 years before most people in fucking chat were born. But what I would say is we should leverage the silliness into positive and productive things, and we should be hyper fucking skeptical of our thought leaders and our false prophets and the people who promise to lead us into the utopian fucking Neverland. And it's not that I want to rob you of your dream or your utopia. It's just that utopia throughout history has been used as a promise in order to get people to do nefarious shit. And while there is a certain level of nefarious shit that needs to be done in order for the world to function, we should minimize the amount of nefarious shit that occurs, because it's fucking awful. And most of the people who have experienced it firsthand, even if they were the perpetrators, are forever scarred by their experiences with, like, what evils humanity can perpetrate. So while it's fun to meme on shit and talk about, like, gross, bloody, disgusting, evil things, we should think about how we should use that to get ourselves jazzed up about politics and power in general. But then we should take a increment of our entertained caveman brain and leverage it into something small and tiny and close to us, so we can say, hey, the world sucked a little bit today. Here's something that I could make it a little bit better. I did the thing. I feel good about myself, and I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow. And that's what I would encourage out of my audience. It does not have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be utopia. It just has to be a little bit better than it was yesterday, and that's a good goal.
Based. And everyone, thank you for coming on. Everybody's links will be in the description. I loved it, and thank you all for fence sitting with me. It was an honor. So
perfect. All right. I love you all.
Right.
I'm gonna go answer chat's questions, and I'm gonna go fucking drink a beer with Taze. So,
all right. I will catch you all later then.
See you.
Thank you so
Bye,
much,
everyone.
Layman.
Thank you
It was
too.
great.
All right, give me a second, chat, and you better be writing fucking questions already, because I ain't got time for your shit. Go. Taze. Right there. Taze has been working his fucking ass off. Number one, he's been doing all the fucking thumbnails for free for the better part of, what, like 6 months or a year now? So for 6 months, he's been doing thumbnails for free. He's been doing back-end consultation. He's been doing artistic, political, philosophical consultation. He's helped manage the Discord. He's done so much fucking shit for this channel that it's insane, and I don't think we would be here if it wasn't for him. And so he was kind enough to not only assist me in building a list of computer parts to build out for the computer, but he was also kind enough to fly out from his home in Las Vegas, hang out with my stupid ass fucking dog, and build the computer. That's what he did. So we're going to be installing the software. This was only possible because of community members like 09YDo, Vici, ZJW, Cullivar, I think EM Penner as well. We have a bunch of members. We have a bunch of people on Patreon. We have a bunch of people who have been donating in chats. So I'm not saying, if you don't have a dime to your name, or if you're broke or whatever, do not give me anything. I don't need anything. But if you can help out, what I eventually want to do is I want to take this money and I want to pay him. I want to pay him. He's a real flesh and blood human being, and he's been doing a lot of fucking work for not any pay. So please, for the love of God, consider going to patreon.com/counterpoints and paying me so I can pay him. And also, just in general, whatever the fuck. What else can they do? They can do Twitch subs. They can do donos. And we're working on the website.
There's donations in the well, I don't know if you put it in the description.
Yeah, there's probably not donations in the description. If you go to twitch.tv and you type in Counterpoints, you can find the donate link there. Yeah. Anyways, so right now, type in @Counterpoints. I'm going to answer your questions, and then I'm going to dip the fuck out. So, YouTube, you already know the fucking game. I'm scrolling up. I'm going to read all your comments. I'm going to go to Twitch chat. I'm going to read all your comments, and then Taze and I are going to go have a beer if he can stay awake, and then we're going to dip out. So, let's go. All right. So, Fubar Freak says, you forgot the tomboy abs. I have never forgotten the tomboy abs. And I will debate Sargon. Our inaugural debate with Sargon of Akkad will be whether or not tomboy abs are based. Hassan's favorite prostitute, @Counterpoint. Centrist liberal abs is apparently enough to make 2 neo-reactionaries become mentally ill. That's how powerful we are? Yeah, fucking based. Nice. Like I said, we're like liberal libertarian in this bitch with like some conservatarian fucking sympathies, okay? So, Vale @Counterpoints. Layman is handsome, okay? He is. Layman is very handsome, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, because I'm known for my rants. That dude can fucking rant. So, you know, I was kind of hurting and wanted to get Taze out of here so we can get him a beer and get him to bed. But you know, we're fucking tapped out. So I love him. I think he's a fucking genius. Him and my politics align a lot. I love Layman. He's a good duder, and I'm actually really appreciative of him for helping out. Hassan's favorite prostitute @Counterpoints. Friedrich Hayek is base libertarian reading material. I recommend it. Yeah, it's going to take a lot for me to become like an anti-statist again, but if I could find some good arguments, that would be great. Truth Lie @Counterpoints. Just take the hard drive and donate the rest. Yeah, we're not going to get rid of the second computer. My wife's probably going to use it, and then when she's done with it, we're probably going to give it to a community member who doesn't have a lot of money. But basically, we're going to run this rig, and if we can do good shit with it, then I'm super excited. Taylor M @Counterpoints. Am I a car guy? No, I'm a gun guy. I take all of the energy that most people spend on cars, and I spend it on guns. Some Kind of Nature @Counterpoints. Say hi to Taze for me. I will. Some Kind of Nature says hi, Taze.
What's up, Kudu?
Kudu! Chelios. There's a community member named Chelios who's helping us with the computer build as well, and he's in Twitch chat, I think, and God bless Chelios because he plays video games with us as well. ZJW74 @Counterpoints. When are you going to put your links in your channels about the page? Probably when Taze actually yells at me and we fucking fuck with everything tomorrow. Common Cure. I want to like Gothics, but I feel like she has some takes that are from 5 years ago. Yes, a lot of libertarians and right-wingers and anti-SJWs have not updated their talking points since 2016, and it's very old. And I don't know how their audiences don't recognize that none of their perspectives have changed in 5 years, but, you know, whatever. Big Hoss @Counterpoints. Favorite beer? I'm a big fan of basically stouts and porters. Anything dark and heavy I like a lot. I'm a big fan of Guinness from the tap, but I will drink basically any porter, stout, or ale and have a good time with it. I used to think that I liked IPAs, but I think it was just popular at the time to like IPAs. I don't like IPAs. I think they suck. Chris, it's fucking hipster over here, still fucking liking IPAs. Chris Cushman @Counterpoints. Why do you think the polar lefty righties hate centrists? It's because it's like, number one, it's the narcissism of small differences. If somebody's slightly different to you, that's a lot more easy to get angry at than somebody who's polarly opposite than you, because if somebody's polarly opposite, you kind of expect that in an argument. And then also it's because we dilute their momentum. If they have an extreme position and we go, well, have you ever thought about this? That's probably really fucking annoying to deal with. I know because I do it all the time intentionally. Just Not Me @Counterpoints. Congrats. If you want a prescriptive discussion, you should talk to I'm Really Important. Yeah, we're going to. He left a comment basically saying that we need to reach out to him. It's just a question of doing it. We have a whole bunch of backed up fucking one-on-ones. Vale @Counterpoints. Layman 1 to 10 heart space. I give him like a 7 or an 8. I think that's fine. You know, for a dude who's mostly straight. ZJW74 @Counterpoints. Stouts are gross, unfollowed. Okay, well, see you in the next one. Taylor M @Counterpoints. What is the Toyota Prius of the gun world? Something reliable but sucks? Yeah, like a Smith & Wesson maybe? Smith & Wesson semi-automatic? Maybe like a revolver or something? I don't know. I don't know. Glock is just like the Glock should be the ugly standard. So
Toyota Corolla.
yeah, that's the Glock. Tay said it perfectly. The Glock is the Toyota Corolla of the gun world. All right, going into Twitch chat. Dr. Concepts at Counterpoints. This conversation was awesome. I'm glad that you do these types of talks alongside the bigger blood sport stuff. Yeah, me too. It's a good balance to have like fun, nice things mixed in with the blood. Try the wine at try the wine. At Counterpoints. Great Tays. Tell him Edie says hi. Eddie? EDE?
Schmear Ed, yeah.
Okay.
Our German friend.
Oh yeah, hey German buddy. Tark97, will there be gaming tomorrow with your new computer at Counterpoints? Yeah, if Taze has anything to say about it, yes, there will be video games. We'll be doing all the software shit tomorrow, tonight and tomorrow, and then we'll be doing it. Sean Mack 4566 at Counterpoints. All right, first person to tell me who first was the first documented person use. Oh my God, we'll get a sub. What was the first documented person use? To use oh my God, we'll get a sub. I don't fucking know. Dude, maybe I'm just tired, but that doesn't seem like English to me. Chris Chelios at Counterpoints. This was a good talk. Thanks, man. We try. Death of Rock at Counterpoints. Did you tell Doomer he isn't getting the wrench until he starts getting white pilled on this? Yeah, I think that's what happened. Y'all told him that he wasn't going to get a wrench, and he went into fucking an existential depression, and he just shut up the entire panel. So you need to blame Adam Friended. He was in the chat too. He had every opportunity to give Doomer mod powers on the Sitch and Adam show, Adam and Sitch show. I know that pisses Sitch off. But he has every opportunity to cure Doomer's depression, and he just doesn't do it. So I think Adam's a cruel person. Crabs Go Pinch. I didn't know at Counterpoint streamed on Twitch as well. Yep, we're dual streaming now. Don't tell anyone. Chris Chelios, but I'm an enlightened centrist. True, I agree. Krellis Go Pinch at Counterpoints was an antidote to tribal sports team-esque mentalities to politics, expanding the tribe, liberalism, syncretism, all that kind of stuff. So Twitch chat, you had your opportunity. I am out on Twitch chat. YouTube chat. Taylor M at Counterpoints, what is a Toyota Prius of the gun world? We answered that, or we didn't answer that, but we don't have a good answer. We'll think on it. Sean Mack at Counterpoints, what are your thoughts on FDR? He probably saved capitalism, but he's a commie piece of shit, so I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about on it, because on one hand, like redistributive economic programs might be something that's good, but on the other hand, I think he went too far. I gotta dial in my centrist brain on that one. Some kind of nature at Counterpoint. Stouts are base, but IPAs are good. Had one with a marshmallow in it. Most unique beer I've ever had. Super good. Yeah, that's cool. High Point is the Prius. High Point is the Prius. I fucking hope not. Jesus Christ. Gris Cushman at Counterpoints. Glocks are the Volvos of the gun world. Yeah, maybe they're like Volvos or Subarus or something. That's a good point. Vale at Counterpoints. Is the guy behind you single? Yes. I think at this time they are, but there are some ladies in contention. So you might want to speed up your attempts. But anyways, this is it. I'm exiting before you guys ask any more questions. I appreciate y'all. Patreon.com/counterpoints. Donate link in the Twitch profile. Sub to the Twitch. Become a member on YouTube. We'll have the website for you shortly if Taze has anything to say about it. We'll have links in the description if Taze has anything to say about it. All that shit over there is trash from the computer that you guys helped build. Again, special thanks to everybody who helped. There. Special thanks to everybody who helped build this. We're going to be able to play video games and stream and yell at people on the internet all at the same time. It's going to be great. It's going to be fucking great. I'm actually super excited. So I'm going to go buy him a beer unless he wants to go to bed, and then we're out. So I appreciate y'all. Have a great night.